Week 10 is underway. We just had a very exciting Thursday night game. I couldn't believe it. It was my palms were sweating the entire time. It was a first round quarterback facing defense of the caliber of the 85 Bears. It was incredible. 10-7, low scoring, but very intense. Just kidding. It was another dreadful Thursday night game, but hopefully these other games, look a lot better than that one, because that was rather pathetic. So we're going to get into all the games and everything. Before we do that, please hit like, subscribe, comment below, share this video, visit the link in the description for the merch store. As always, something for the merch store. It is once again our 801 AMC t-shirt, and I said this yesterday. I say this again. This is financial advice. Do not buy AMC stock because you will lose money. Otherwise, you can go to the merch store here. Buy these shirts. You can change the colors of the shirts. You can get long sleeve, you can get hoodie, you can get women's tank top, you can get infant onesie even. It's all here. We have a 20% off sale right now. You can go to Amazon, buy my books. The most recent one is Jerks of the College Years, where I made fun of people. It's rated 5 stars, by the way, so it might be the best book ever. Also, a safety and a field goal, rated 4.1 stars, so not as good, but it's a top 5 topic book of the NFL, mostly serious stuff, but some fun stuff as well. And please consider super chat, super stickers. That's really the best way to support the show. YouTube ads don't pay much at all. It is Q4, so it's a little bit more than usual, but it is rather bleak overall. So if you guys really want to keep the show going, that would be really appreciated. And one final thing, if you're watching this and you're not subscribed, I already said subscribe, but we are 60 subs shy of 6,000, so that would be a cool milestone to hit in the coming weeks. So if you're not subscribed, please hit the subscribe button. That would be really appreciated. All right, we're joined by Evan Daniel. Evan, how are you? How was your week 9? Although I probably based on our contest interview, I kind of know the answer to that.
Well, we started last week by saying that favorites the week before were 11-2 straight up, 11-2 against the spread. It's a square year. Favorites keep winning and covering. This is a waste of time to even handicap the games. And I made manual adjustments so that I wouldn't find myself backing underdogs as much as we normally would like. So what did we do? We took a whole bunch of big favorites and we went 0-5.
Yes.
And last week, back to normal. Underdogs covered 9 out of 14 games, which I guess it's not really the norm, but certainly this year not the norm. But in a normal year, covering 8 or 9 games out of 14 would be something that I would expect. They won 6 out of 14. And my model, like for example, last week, Green Bay, I had that game lined at 11. The line's 13.5. We said, screw it. The hell with the computer models. Let's lay the wood with Green Bay. And that is one overrated football team. And we've talked about how overrated the Packers are. Yet we found ourselves on the Packers last week. Washington, we kept saying, if Daniels is playing, how is that line 3? Well, that line should have been a lot more than 3. And that was over. At least we could say we didn't get screwed by any blocked field goals for a touchdown. We didn't have a bad beat. Dallas, I expected Dallas to come out and put up 30 plus. I think Dallas had 3 points pretty much offensively until garbage time. Mm-hmm. So just dead wrong across the board. Colts, we love the Colts. They had 6 turnovers. Well, I guess you can't predict turnovers, but it was just 1 week to forget. So we move on. The good news is week 10 starts a new contest, mini contest, Circa and Super Contest. So we will get right back to it. I did manually recheck my lines, figuring, you know what, I've never made those kinds of adjustments in season. I'm just going to go back to the basics. We'll continue to fade the teams like Tennessee, like New Orleans, maybe like the Jets. Although I think you were on the Jets last week. Or just flat out avoid some of those really, really bad games. And there's a couple of them this week, and there's a couple of them coming up in weeks to come. So back to the basics, move on. And otherwise, yeah, it was a great week 9. Advanced in both my Circa survivors. 280 people or so were knocked out with the Packers. So we're into the final 10%. And I was really, really rooting for the Raiders tonight because I think it was a little bit over 500 available Bronco picks out of the 1,700 remaining. I'm guessing that about at least half, maybe 250 to 300 of them had Denver tonight. And man, was I really rooting for the Raiders at the end of that game. That was another, as you called it, another terrible Thursday night football game with one of the most overrated quarterbacks of our generation, Bo Nix, just showing on a national scale why this guy is a backup or a very low end starting quarterback in this league. That guy is not a starting quarterback. He threw at least 2 picks tonight that should have been picked, another 2 picks that were actually picked off. He's inaccurate. He throws the ball over guys' heads. He's benefiting from a lot of luck. And I will continue to bet against Denver. I'll pick my spots. I'm now 8-2 against the spread picking Denver games. So I feel like I have a very good read on this team. Bo Nix, not an NFL quarterback. He's no better than Geno Smith, in my opinion.
In fairness, Mina Kimes said Geno Smith's the top 10 quarterback. So you might have to admit that Bo Nix
he's got a high bar there, yeah.
Exactly. I'm handicapping the Broncos as well too. 7-2 against the spread heading into this week. Unfortunately, I had the Broncos tonight. I didn't like. I don't know if they were looking ahead to the Chiefs or what. Like they didn't play their best game. I had them last week as well. And
what did you make the spread? I'm curious because I was way off. My number in the game came 6.5. I was surprised, and the only reason why I hesitated in really betting the Raiders, and I didn't bet the Raiders. I don't like betting Thursday night games, so I avoided the game altogether. But I was afraid of the Raiders coming off of like a 5-quarter OT game on a short week.
Yeah,
that's really what set me off.
Yeah, teams in that situation 6-25 against the spread, or at least they were heading into the game. Now 7-25. I made the line 9, so I was right on par with the line. But I thought that with that advantage of the Raiders playing a full 5 quarters, like they went the distance in that overtime. I thought that would help spark Denver. I thought the matchups really favored Denver, and we saw like the Raiders offense did nothing outside of one drive. They went 7 drives without a first down, 7 consecutive drives. Like, how did Denver not win, not cover the spread?
Denver had what, it was like 7 3-and-outs.
Yeah, they were awful. In this game, the Raiders had they had an interception, a surrender block punt, 9 penalties, a missed field goal, a touchdown negated by penalty, and yet the Broncos only won by 3. Bo Nix's footwork was so bad in this game. He just like throwing so many
throwing up prayers. He's throwing the ball and he's just praying that somehow they find his receivers.
Yeah. And somehow he does really well in these fourth quarters and like the final minutes where, he starts to scramble and then he somehow wills the team to victory. He's done it. He did it against the Eagles. He did it against the Giants. He did it against the Texans. I don't know how he does this. Even the Colts game, week 2, like he led a drive at the end. They scored, but then the Colts scored after. I don't know why doesn't he just play that way the whole game? I don't know. Maybe it's just pretty good defense.
I want to give him credit for one thing. He's clutch, right? He does show poise in those late game situations. He doesn't have the happy feet. He's not a deer in the headlights. He's just inaccurate. Right? He's running around. He's trying to make plays, but he's inaccurate. He's inaccurate downfield, and he doesn't like. To his credit, he's been throwing the deep ball a little bit more. I pointed this out for a year and a half, that most of his passes come behind the line of scrimmage or short. Last week, he actually threw the ball downfield a few times, although he was 2 for 11 passing, throwing the ball 10-plus yards downfield. So he's just not accurate, at least now. So last week, he was 2 for 11 on 20-plus yard attempts. But he had the 2 for 11, the 2 were touchdowns, right? Yeah. He was 4 for 15 overall, 10-plus yards downfield. The guy's just inaccurate. So he's just not capable of hitting those passes, at least right now at this point in his career. He's able to win those games late because he does use his legs, although tonight he didn't really have to use his legs. But he's just not an accurate quarterback.
Yeah, it's really bad. The footwork needs to be fixed, but that's a pretty tough thing to change once the quarterback has these habits, and unless that gets changed. Like I really
very inaccurate for a year or two.
Yeah, and that's true. But Josh Allen had a massive ceiling, whereas like Bo Nix does not. No. His ceiling is just like average NFL quarterback.
I think that Jackson Dart is a better version of Bo Nix right now.
Yeah, 100%. I would take Dart over Bo Nix in a heartbeat. So we're in agreement there. This team just looks like one and done in the playoffs. I assume they're going to get some. Yeah, exactly. They're 8-2. They're 8-2 right now, so I would assume they're going to make the playoffs. But depending, like I can't even imagine them beating a team like unless they're the 5th seed and they play, the 4th seed. The Colts are going.
They have a very good chance They have a
Yeah,
very good chance of getting that 1 seed. If they can beat
yeah.
Kansas City one of the 2 games, they play
Mhm.
Washington, the Raiders again, Green Bay, Jacksonville at home, and the Chargers without Joel down the road. So
That's
this
crazy.
team, would it surprise you if they, and their defense is awesome. The defense is a top 3 defense. Benito
Yep.
is unbelievable. Would it
Yep.
surprise you if they go 13-4? Wouldn't surprise me at all.
No.
But I don't
No.
think they're going to win a playoff game.
No, I don't think so either.
Home or
I mean,
not, buy or not, I don't think they're going to win a playoff game.
yeah, I was about to say, like, if they're the 5 seed, and if the Chiefs win the division, they're the 5 seed, and they play a week 4. But then there's no week 4s this year because the Colts are so strong. Usually it's the Texans or the Jaguars as the 4 seed, but this year, I guess there would be Baltimore if they win the division because their record is so bad right now. But Baltimore would destroy Denver. So yeah, I don't see it.
Last year we didn't get duped. You didn't get duped. I kind of did. The line last year, they went into Buffalo. They were dogs by 9,
Mm-hmm.
and I said going into that game, I'm like, I know the Bills are going to win, but I kind of like the Broncos with the points. I could see the game being close and Allen, chasing points, because sometimes Allen is a little bit immature when he's behind in games. He'll just throw the ball deep first, second, and third down. And in that game, Knicks, to his credit, had one really nice pass early. They led 7-0, and then they didn't score after that. They got blown out 31-7. So I could see a similar outcome here. I don't think they'll give up 31 points in a playoff game. Their defense is too good to do that, but their offense is god awful. And they were trailing the Eagles, who went to sleep. They should have lost to the Giants. The Jets didn't even attempt the field goal late. Granted, it would have been a very long field goal, but the Jets opted to go 4th and 8 in London and not even attempt a field goal at the end of that game. But they were basically a Jets long field goal attempt away from losing to the Jets, the defeated Jets. And last week, I don't think they win that game if Stroud doesn't get hurt. Now, granted, the Houston offense is awful, and they had 1st and goal from the 1 last week and couldn't score. They ran 2 of their 4 plays were like fullback dives.
Yeah.
And then on 4th and 1, they tried a quarterback sneak and full started, and then they kicked the field goal. And then later in the game with Davis Mills, they had another 1st and goal situation from like the 2-yard line and moved backwards again with very creative play calling. So that's not a knock against Denver's offense. Obviously, Denver's defense did the job, but a normal offense with a normal play caller is probably going to score 1 touchdown in that situation, let alone going 0 for 2 when you're 1st and goal from the 2 or closer. And once again, against the Houston very solid defense, they did nothing. At the end of the game, they had 1 drive, to their credit, tie the game. And why was Houston at the end of that game with like 1:40 to go? Why were they allowing Davis Mills to throw from their own 10-yard line?
Yeah.
They should have just ran the ball, run the clock out. Did they really think they were going to get into field goal range? Davis Mills had to move the ball all game. They gave the Broncos the ball back at midfield. So, again, the Broncos are just an overrated football team, which is great. When you get these overrated teams, you can make money betting against them in the right spots. It's just unfortunate that, once again, they're going to be a playoff team, and maybe this year they belong in the playoffs. I have Denver right now 12th in my power rankings, but right there with the Vikings and Chargers. So, a top 14 team, maybe, so they're a fringe playoff team, but definitely not a contender like 8-2. Bothers me when teams are like this 8-2 and people think they're really good. And it sounds like I'm hating on Bo Nix. I just think he's a bad quarterback.
Yeah.
And I'm 8-2 betting on or against them. So I'm happy where I have Denver rated, and hopefully we'll continue to take advantage.
Yeah, I also have them 12th. So, yeah, fringe playoff team, but they're a Group C. They're just an average team. Their wins this year, except for the Cincinnati and Dallas games, which they blew out, but their wins this year are by 4 over the Eagles, 1 over the Giants, 3 over the Texans with Davis Mills, 8 over the Titans, which we know now was pretty pathetic, and then 2 over the Jets. So not very convincing there. Just the 2 blowout wins, which, the Dallas one would seem strange, except Dallas lost to Arizona. So, but the Cincinnati one, I think, is the only one that makes sense as a blowout. But the Dallas one, I don't know. I guess that one just got away from the Cowboys, and Dak just had a terrible game, but we can move on to the regular week 10 games. Before we do, we have a question from Andrew. Hey, would you trade Derrick Henry and Terry McLaurin for Jamar Chase? My receivers are Puka, Waddle, Pearsall, McLaurin. My running backs are Henry, Saquon, Doodle, Hampton, Monangai. Yeah, it feels like you can afford to trade a running back because you have some good running backs for receiver. You obviously you have Puka, who's great, but Waddle is inconsistent. Pearsall's I don't know, who knows when he's coming back, and McLaurin he lost his quarterback. So I would do that. Yeah, I would do that. So good luck with your fantasy team going forward in the trade. All right, so we have the London. No, I just said the London game. This is a Germany game. This is Falcons versus Colts. Colts are favored by 6.5. You know my stance on this: make football American again. So I will be touting that shirt right before this game. I actually said it on. I have scheduled tweets. There's no way I'm waking up that early. Anyway. So a couple of injuries here. DeForest Buckner was ruled out for this game. Leonard Floyd was ruled out for the Falcons. So, two major injuries to defensive linemen. I think the Colts are the better team. However, I didn't get the 6.5. I made this line like 3.5, and I gave the Colts another point because the better team usually does well in these international games. But it's still 4.5. It's still shy of 6.5. It's like 6 is a key number. So I would lean Atlanta here, but there's no way I'm betting these stupid international games. I told you, I have bad dreams about them because I want to sleep. If I get up for these games, it's like 3 hours of sleep or even less. So I just can't do that. I can't function. I'm gonna watch the game later. But what do you think about this one?
Same. I was Googling before the flight time from Atlanta to Berlin because I was actually thinking now going ahead a week for survivor mapping purposes, and it's like a 9-hour flight. So it's not like you're flying cross country 6 hours, or even the London, which is only a 5-hour flight from the East Coast, or at least from the Northeast. That's a long flight, 9 hours. And from Indy, it's probably around the same because Atlanta's south. So you're talking long travel. It's just very difficult to handicap that type of how the body clock changes when these teams travel, how the routines are. So I, like you, forgetting the London travel or the Berlin travel, I made the line 4.5. I thought 6.5 was a little rich. Obviously, Indy off of a really bad game offensively, you would expect them to be more buttoned up this week. But Atlanta's a decent defensive team. They've obviously had they've been very inconsistent on both sides of the ball. But if they bring their A game, if both teams play what I think would be their best, I would imagine the Colts to be a little bit more protective of the ball. I think they should be able to move the ball. I don't think they're putting up 30 plus. I don't know anything about the weather or the field conditions in Berlin. I think both teams will look to run the ball, which means it's a little bit lower scoring, longer drives, fewer drives. I was very disappointed last week with Atlanta's final drive. Now, I was rooting for New England. I was on the Atlanta side last week. It was one of the few games that I actually got right. And then, of course, they missed the extra point. But then they got the ball back, and Penix was awful. He threw it, and he had an intentional grounding penalty that was just miserable. I don't think he saw the snap coming, caught the ball, and kind of just threw it into the dirt. Just a complete lack of awareness. We've seen that a couple of times from Penix. So I would be hard-pressed to be betting on Penix in this situation. Obviously, the spot screams for the Colts to play better, but I think the line's a little rich, and therefore I would easily pass.
Yeah. So we're not going to put this one on our card. I've kind of sworn off these stupid international games. I can't. I just want these to end. Maybe one per year if that was a novelty.
It's going to be every year. It's going to be every week.
It's going to be every week. You're right. It's terrible. It's Roger Goodell is just destroying the NFL. The NFL is the king of the king of the sports world right now, and Goodell's trying his best to ruin it. There's
no good solution. I mean, unless you put these games at 1:00 and play them as like a night game somewhere overseas.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, why not?
Is that a possibility? I don't know.
Well, it used to be. They used to have
play these games. What's the time difference to Germany? I have no idea. 7 hours?
I think it's another hour. Yeah. So
what time are they starting the game? 4 o'clock in the afternoon. The game's at 9:30, so that's about 4:30.
If they started at 1, it'd be 7 o'clock. That's fine. They used to do it like when they first started.
7 hours ahead. If they started at 1, it's about 8 o'clock. Why can't they play a night game?
You're right, right. Is it too dangerous over there or something? Like, I don't know. It's crazy. I don't get it. They used to do it at 1 o'clock. The London games. They used to start them at 1, and then they changed it to 9:30 because they're like, oh,
It's
football
still a
all
bad
day.
product, by the way.
Right,
It
right.
doesn't
Yeah,
matter what time they start. For us, it's and people on the West Coast are getting up at 6:30 in the morning to watch the game. But to have these teams travel, and it's just ridiculous. But you're going
yeah.
to, and the comment that there will be an international team. I believe that there may be an international division one day.
Yeah, I know. I spoke to someone who used to work for ESPN, and this is a while ago, but this is back in 2013, where I had this conversation with him, and he said by 2020, Goodell's plan was to have an international team by 2020. Now, obviously, that didn't happen, but instead they have all these international games. There we have 7 this year, which is obscene. Like, when it was just 1, it was fun, it was whatever, it's a novelty. And then they made it 2 and then 3. Like, I thought 3 was too much. And then now it's 7. And like, yeah, they're gonna have an Australian game next year or whenever.
Is that right?
They said
Australia?
yeah, they said they're gonna have an Australian game, yeah.
Oh, that's crazy.
Which I don't know when.
How did they do that?
It's what 12 or 11-hour difference.
I think it's more.
So
Well, it depends which side of Australia. Like, I think it could be up to like
yeah.
14 hours.
What's the time in Sydney right now? It is 4:15 in the morning, right? No, sorry, 4:15 in the afternoon in Sydney.
It's 14. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
so
more than 16 hours.
yeah, that's crazy. So when would they even play? I guess they start at 9 p.m. here and they play at 1 o'clock there. I guess that's the only thing that makes sense. I don't know. It's a mess. Like, I don't know. When are they gonna have a game in Ukraine? Let's do that. I actually have a shirt. I have a shirt that's where is it? It's there we go. Let's find it here. Slava NFL. And then on the back it says play NFL games in Ukraine. So yeah, it's I need to troll Roger Goodell. He sucks. I think they could do 1 a week, but they have a bye right after the game. Well, teams right now have the option to take the bye, and sometimes they don't take it. Like Indianapolis,
Most of the time they don't take it now.
yeah, Indianapolis decided that they take it, so they have a bye next week, but Atlanta decided they won't. So they already had their bye week in week 5, and so like they're just gonna be jet lagged the entire time. So good luck. I don't understand why you wouldn't take the bye if you had the option to do that. Seems silly. Like,
Yeah, and some of us are considering Atlanta in week 11 with Survivor.
is that they play Carolina?
Yeah,
Yeah.
rematch from the 30-0 game from a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, revenge. Yeah, so yeah, it's Falcons are 3.5 point favorites on the advanced line. So I go to Europe often. Sometimes I'm not adjusted by week 3. It's exhausting. Coming back to the States is much easier, though. Okay. Yeah, usually like going east is tougher, right? Because you lose time.
Always going east is tougher.
Yeah.
There's some of us who fly back and forth to the West Coast often.
Yeah.
Anytime I fly west, I'm totally fine.
Yeah.
When I come back home, it takes me a day or so to really catch up.
Yeah,
exhausted that first night or even the second night.
Yeah, flights to Vegas. Like I'm pumped up. Like when I get there, and
right? Unless the Vegas air, that just makes life just so much easier out there.
That's true. And then, but coming home, I'm like zonked out on the couch.
Yeah, for sure.
It's horrible. So maybe the trick is to just keep going west. Like like from the West Coast, you go to Hawaii, and then you just go to Australia, and then you just go to I don't know, somewhere in Eastern Europe, and then you just go to London, and then you go back to the East Coast. So that's the trick. Then you won't be tired ever. We had a question here: trade McBride for London and Kittle or Goddard. Receivers: CeeDee Lamb, Wild, DK, Tedder, Pearsall. Running backs: Etienne, Judkins, Warren, Monangai. Hesitant with Brissett as Arizona QB. McBride might take off. Yeah, I mean, look, Brissett is great for McBride. He suddenly scores touchdowns. But your receivers are CeeDee Lamb, Waddle, DK, Tedera. It looks like you do need a receiver. But who's your tight end? Because if you lose McBride, who are you playing at tight end? That's the question I would have. McBride for London is pretty even. So like I guess you're getting Kittle back too. I could see that actually. I don't know. I mean, I think that's if you're getting London and Kittle, I think that's a fair trade. That's a decent trade. I think I would do it. Do you have any opinion on this?
I think it's fair. I don't have a
Yeah.
strong opinion.
Okay. All right. Let's get to the next game, which is Browns at the Jets. Here's this is a banger here. Browns are favored by 2. They were plus 1.5 before the trades. So the Jets obviously traded Quinn Williams, Sauce Gardner. So the Browns are now road favorites, which I thought they should be road favorites to begin with. The Jets are one of the worst teams in the NFL. I guess you can definitely say the Titans are worse, but then after that, I don't think there's a team worse than the Jets. And that was before the trades. So now they don't have Quinn Williams to rush the quarterback or stop the run. They're going to be awful in both regards. They're already awful in rushing the quarterback. They don't have Sauce Gardner to take out half the field. Now, that's not going to matter too much against the Browns, but Quinn Williams' absence will definitely matter. I think you have a couple strengths in favor of the Browns here. The Browns should be able to run the ball with Quinshon Judkins is going to be healthy. I saw a report saying today that he was going to be like a big focal point of this team's offense in this game, and that's going to work out against the Jets, who stink against the run and are going to be worse than that Williams. And then defensively for the Browns, figured like with the Jets don't really have a functional offense. Now Garrett Wilson might come back. We don't know that yet. He's been limited twice this week. But unless he's like 100%, the Jets don't really have anyone to stretch the field unless you want to count Adonai Mitchell. So the Browns should be able to dominate this game defensively. This game kind of might remind us of the Dolphins-Browns from a few weeks ago, where the Browns won 31-6. I don't think it's going to be that much of a disparity, but I do think the Browns will cover the spread in this game. I like them quite a bit. What do you think?
Well, the difference between that Dolphins game was that it was really cold in that game, or really windy, or maybe it was supposed to be really windy, and the Dolphins just wanted no part of it. Mm-hmm. So, first of all, going back to the Colts, did you like the trade for Sauce for 2 first-round picks? Or you say, well, it's a good trade this year, obviously, because you're getting something for nothing, but maybe going forwards. Because I was kind of shocked that he got 2 first-round picks. Plus, he's getting paid a fortune.
Mm-hmm. Right. I'd like to trade for the Colts because their picks are going to be in the 20s or maybe even 30s. And, like, why not? Like, that's the one weakness of their team, which is cornerback. You get to fix that. Like, who are you going to get with those 2 picks that's going to be better than Sauce Gardner? And it's not like he's an old player. If he's 30, I'd hate it. He's 25. So if you just turn one of those picks into Sauce, or like, I think both those picks combined might not even be better than Sauce Gardner by himself. So I did like the trade. I'm not too worried about the cap or the cap hit or whatever. Cap is fake, as we know on this channel from Kenny being on he owns the capisfake.com. So there are ways to get around that as long as the owner wants to pay money. So I did like the trade. I hated what the Jets did. It kind of, it made sense to rebuild, obviously, but the guys they traded are 25 and 27 years old. Like, they could have been part of the rebuilding process. And I love the Peter Griffin meme where, I don't know if you, what'd you say?
They're under contract.
Yeah. I love the Peter Griffin meme. I don't know if you've seen it, but the one where he's on a game show and he gets to choose between a boat and a box. He's like, there could be anything in this box, even a boat. And it's kind of like, this draft pick could be anything. It could even be Sauce Gardner. So I didn't like these trades for the Jets at all. What did you think about the trades?
Yes, I mean, I thought they got a lot for those 2 players. I thought that getting 3 first-round picks back is a good place to start, and the Jets are not going anywhere fast. Now, unfortunately, the Jets will probably pick the wrong quarterback. They'll probably end up with like a Carson Beck somewhere in the early first round, and he's, as I've mentioned before to you privately, one of the worst prospects I've seen in a long time. So, but I like getting the capital, and if those players are going to be pissed off and, I mean, not really contribute to a winning team, a winning environment, then why keep them if you can reload down in the future? So I don't have a problem for either side. I think the Colts, again, deep 2 years down the road, maybe this is a mistake, but I think for this year, what a great move to add to the defense, to the secondary, which was one of their weaknesses. I thought that was a great move by the Colts. I have no idea what Dallas is doing. Does Dallas think they're going to improve now? I mean, Quinn Williams, I think they need a lot more than Quinn Williams. They may improve from the number 30 defense to the number 27 defense, but they're not going anywhere. So what they're doing, I have no idea. But anyway, getting back to Browns Jets, I lean to the Browns, but I don't like the game. for me, I don't want any part of Dylan Gabriel on the road. I think obviously if the game script is run the ball with Judkins has been fine. But I don't think Cleveland is putting up more than 20, 17, 19, 20, 23 points. So I do think they'll win the game. I'm not surprised that the line is moving. Originally, I had Cleveland favored even before the trade. And when I saw the Jets favored, I'm thinking, okay. Because I have the Jets right there with the Saints and Titans as the three teams that I just want no part of. And they're coming off their first win of the season. So they get a win. They go into a bye. They're feeling good about themselves. They're not coming out of the bye focused. So, and this also kind of signals that we're riding with Aaron Glenn. We're trading away our players. We don't care if we win games. They're going to ride with Aaron Glenn. And I don't want any part of the Jets either. So I would lean to the Browns, but that offense, I mean, first of all, they're 0-4 on the road. They've lost by 24, 14, and 19. Is that a team that you want to be backing right now? Laying a couple of points, even though it's just 2.5? I still would have made the line 3, but I would want no part of this game. Would you think this might be like a contest pick, a top 5 pick for you?
It's in consideration, yeah.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. I look, the Browns have had some ugly losses. They lose 41-17 to the Ravens, 34-10 to the Lions, 32-13 to the Patriots. Like, those are all Group A, Group B teams. Like, if you look at how they've done against Group C or worse, like, they should have beaten the Bengals in week 1, which with Joe Burrow, but the only team to face Joe Burrow for a whole game. 21-17 in London against the Vikings, which, they were ahead for most of the game. They did have an ugly 23-9 game against the Steelers, but that was after they came back from London. So kind of
that was also Gabriel's first start.
Yeah, right. Against a Tomlin defense at least, and then 31-6 win over the Dolphins. So as long as they're playing an average or worse team, they have a chance to win these games. And I think that I think their offense. I think you're right. Like, their offense at most will score maybe 20 or so, but their defense could score here too, like they did against the Dolphins. And I don't see the Jets doing anything offensively. Maybe 10.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with you on that one.
Yeah. So I like the Browns as long as it's not under 3. I'm fine. I'm fine taking them. They're in consideration. They're not like one of my favorite picks, but they're like, if I had to rank my picks this week, they'd be somewhere between 4 and 6 probably.
For me, it's like a bottom 3, just because these are some of the games that I just want no part of. I think they should flex these types of games to Thursday nights in the future. Say, Browns Jets are playing in week 10. Perfect. Let's put that on Thursday night. This way we can kind of avoid. We don't want to bet the game. We don't have to really watch the game. We'll watch the game because we're going to watch every football game, but this is the Thursday night football game that I would want to see. You want to get a little appetizer to the week. This game doesn't need to waste the TV on Sunday. So let's put Jets Browns. And I think it's a good, we're lucky next week, fast forwarding, we get to send the Redskins and the Dolphins out to Berlin or London or wherever the hell they're going. Spain.
It's Madrid. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Redskins, Dolphins, go. Have fun.
Let's go.
You guys want to watch football? There you go. You get the Redskins and Dolphins. You don't even have to record that game. You don't care what happens. You're not going to bet it, and that's it.
Yeah, that could incite a war. Just like, hey, why are you sending us this game? Germany got Colts Falcons. We can't get one of these teams. Andy,
if I have a public record of my plays, I'm in an office pool, but the spreads are slightly different. So that would be the only place where my picks are public. But those lines come out on Tuesday and they lock. So there's a lot of stale lines, which I'll very often just take value. Otherwise, no, I don't. I mean, if you want to document my picks, that's totally fine. I can tell you exactly on the season. I'm pretty bad right now, 66 and 69 for the season. Throw in the game tonight. So now I'm 67 and 69 on the season. So very, very poor, under 500. Contests were 21 and 24, which is utterly atrocious. And like I said, we're 20 and 25. My super contest. Yeah. I got a win last week with Buffalo, the only game that I got right. And the only handicap that I got right, because there's no Chiefs game this week, but I told you the Chiefs weren't going to do anything last week.
Yeah.
They were going to be very vanilla. We took a bet after the fact. I texted you on Friday morning. I said, Mahomes, 4.5 rushing attempts. That sounds juicy. Yeah. Zero rushing attempts. I promise you in the playoffs, he will not have 0 rushing attempts when they play the rematch.
Yeah,
we'll get it. We'll get that over 4.5. I love it. I'll lock it in right now. Best bet of January, Buffalo, Kansas City rematch, Mahomes over rushing attempts. 0 rushing attempts. There's no way that was an emphasis that he's not running the ball in this game.
It looked to me like they were intentionally hiding stuff from Buffalo because they knew they're going to see him again. To me, like they looked like they just weren't showing anything. Um, I don't know. Maybe I'm overthinking things, but it looked like they didn't care to win that game at all. And yet they almost did. As crazy as that is, like as bad as they played, they almost won the game. So it shows you how good they are. And by the way, you said flex this Browns Jets game. Andy yesterday said they should flex this game to 1 a.m. If you want to get football all day, there you go. We can have 1 a.m. games. We'll both watch those.
I would love that. That would be great.
Yeah. Oh my god, that would be awesome. I pick one receiver, one flex. Brees, Garrett, and Diggs. I have one more question. Goats, one receiver, one flex. Allen, Garrett, Henderson. So if Garrett Wilson's playing, that's interesting. I would take Diggs though. He has the best matchup. Like you don't want to play anyone against the Browns defense. I think that's way too tough. And then one receiver, one flex. Keenan Allen, Garrett, Henderson. Allen's kind of been like phased out of that offense with Aranda Gatson, but plus the offensive line is in really bad shape. So I think I'd avoid Allen. I think I'd go Garrett and Henderson. So good luck,
You like Henderson against the Bucks?
I think he's going to catch some passes out of the backfield. Tampa's allowed receiving yards to running backs. So I like him over Keenan. I don't like him. I like him over Keenan Allen though. Like Allen's done nothing in like a month. And I like I said, I think it's Gadsden plus the bad offensive line that's causing these issues. Let's see. Carson Beck, Paris laughing at that. Carson Beck is awful. The problem with the meme is that the Jets don't want a cornerback or a defensive line. Well, they need a cornerback. They're going to get the quarterback with their natural pick, right? Like it's going to be top 3. So they need an edge. They really need a second receiver as well. But they do need a corner because they traded not only Sauce Gardner, but they traded Michael Carter to the Eagles. So they don't have anything at corner, and they lost DJ Reed in the offseason. So they're really hurting at the position.
And they probably need a coach.
Yeah, they need everything except running back. Running back, they're fine. And I like Wilson, so number 1 receiver. They're set there. And they have a couple of decent offensive linemen. Other than that, they're just completely nothing on that team right now. Would you drop Love, Mason, or Darnold for Monangai? I definitely would want Monangai. If Love is your second quarterback, I would drop him or Darnold. You don't need 2 quarterbacks on your roster in fantasy. I would drop Love, I guess. I think Darnold's slightly better, but
especially without Kraft.
Yeah, that's true. How do teams that were winless for half the season do after finally coming off a win? I will look that up in the next game that we do. We will get to that in a bit. But let's jump to Saints Panthers. Like I said, when Evan's talking, I'll look that up. Panthers are -5.5. We've seen a couple of these Group F at Group D games. This year we had week 2 Giants by Russell Wilson at Dallas. That was 40-37. So the Giants lost, but they covered. And then a couple weeks ago we saw Jets at Bengals, and the Jets won outright in that game, albeit with Trey Hendrickson going down. But still, this line is too high. It's way too high. Like a bad team like the Panthers favored by 5.5. Unless it's the Titans, I don't care who they're playing. They shouldn't be favored by 5.5. The Saints have a terrible record, and they have not looked good in recent weeks. They got blown out by the Rams and the Bucks, but I think it's worth noting that they've only played one team worse in Group C so far this year, which was the Giants, and that was the game they won. They played so many tough games this year. Like they played against the Bills, they played against the Rams, they played against the 49ers in week 2 when they were mostly healthy. They played against the Patriots. They played against the Seahawks. That's such a tough slate. Buccaneers. It's such a tough slate that they've had so far, and this is their I guess second easiest game to date. So I think they're going to play better than people think. And the Panthers aren't completely healthy. Like they won last week. They were missing a few offensive linemen. If those guys are out again, then I think the Saints could hang the number and maybe even win outright. Panthers coming off that's such a big win. It's a horrible spot for them. So what do you think about this one?
Well, this is a hard one because who are the Panthers, like you said, to be laying points? But in my power ratings, I have the Saints, Titans, and Jets at least 3.5 points worse than anybody else on a neutral field. So I give the Panthers a point and a half or so. I would make the line 4.5. And as I'm looking at that and writing 4.5, I'm thinking laying 4.5 with this team with Bryce Young. They did nothing last week offensively. Again, other than the last drive, Bryce Young threw for 102 yards in the game. Offensively, they're the 29th ranked passing offense and number 29 in yards per play. New Orleans hasn't been terrible defensively, and you pointed out all of their tougher matchups. They've competed. They haven't been good, but they've competed. Other than the game where they got blown out against Seattle, they competed against Buffalo. They were a drop touchdown pass in that game away from really putting Buffalo on the ropes. They fought back against the Niners. They fought back against the Cardinals. So they've been somewhat competitive, but it's still Tyler Shuck on the road. And now they just took Shaheed off the roster. He was a guy that stretched the field. So do you really want to be backing the Saints in this spot? I actually was considering Carolina as one of my potential Circa Survivor picks this week, which I have two picks that I think are better. But sneaking Carolina through really puts you in a good position because you get to save some of those other teams for weeks down the road where they would potentially be needed. So I am still considering outside shot using Carolina Survivor, but I did highlight the Saints as it's probably not one of my top 5 because, again, I don't really want to be on Tyler Shuck on the road, even though it's a divisional game, even though Carolina shouldn't be a team that's favored by more than a field goal. I don't really know that I would want to be contest pick Saints, but I am picking the Saints. I lean to the Saints. I don't disagree with you. It's a terrible spot for Carolina, but you go into that game and Tyler Shuck throws his first pick. What are you thinking, right?
No,
so
no.
If it's a top 5 game, I'm not opposed to it, but it's not one of mine.
Yeah, on the road doesn't really bother me. Today's NFL, like home field has been very diminished over the years. And really, like when you're talking horrible teams, I think it's almost better that they go on the road because the home fans can't turn on them. Like we saw the Jets win their only game on the road. Like I think it's fine. The Saints, I will be betting the Saints. I don't know if they're going to quite make the card, but it's close. If it's the Golden Nugget contest, we need 7. They might be the 7th pick, I think.
That's fair. So you'll hopefully talk me out of taking Carolina as a survivor pick.
I would not take Carolina. You made it this far. I think you've snuck in enough bad teams to choose Carolina. I don't know. If you had like 5 entries left, you could maybe burn one on Carolina, but I don't know.
Well, I was able to burn Denver.
Yeah.
Early on, so that's good. I don't have to worry about taking Denver again.
Yeah.
I was able to burn Arizona in both of my entries that are alive. I was able to burn Chicago.
Oh yeah.
Dallas.
Yeah.
I've gotten away with some bad teams, so that's good.
Yeah.
But we're not even halfway through. This week is the halfway part, so there's a long way to go. And like I said, sneaking Carolina through. When we get to the other games, I'll let you know who I have available. But some of them are much better teams that have more weeks as options. Whereas Carolina, this is the only week to even look in Carolina's direction.
Yeah, that's definitely true. I don't disagree with that. So we had that stat that Parrots was asking, how do teams that were winless for half the season do after finally getting off the win? So I mean, you can't really do half the season here because I mean we're not even done half the season. I guess. I guess we are done half the season, but I looked up how teams have done starting 0-6 or worse and then getting their first win. And if you want something different, just let me know. But teams in that situation are actually 23-17 against the spread. This is dating back to 1989. So 57.5% cover rate, 12-28 straight up. So they usually lose, but cover. So there's that, and I wanted to look up how they've done since 2010 because I think team underdogs have done worse in that span just because they can't practice as much, and it is worse slightly, but they're still slightly winning 8-7 against the spread. So nothing really to kind of bank on or anything. Not that I would recommend banking on trends, but there's nothing to speak of there. So. but I guess it just shows that you can take these teams. But if it was like 4-20, I'd be like, maybe stay away. But it's 8-7 is just like, yeah, you can take the teams if you think that they're in a good spot. Okay. The next game we have here is Bills at Dolphins. Bills are -9.5 on the road. I think this is matchup versus spot totally. Like the Bills by far are better than the Dolphins. We know that on both sides of the ball. They should be able to score at will against Miami's awful defense, a Miami defense that already struggles to get to the quarterback, and they lost their best edge rusher, Jalen Phillips, plus Chop Robinson's injured. So Jalen Phillips is getting 24% of the pressures on this team. So he's gone. They're not going to get onto Josh Allen at all. And they can't stop the run either. And James Cook practiced today, so he should be good to go. The Bills' defense against Miami's offense, we know how bad Miami's offense is. Tua, horrible offensive line. They don't have Tyreek Hill anymore, no Darren Waller. Achane could have some good gains here. The Bills are kind of weak against the run, but otherwise the Dolphins are not going to do much. So if you're just looking at spot or matchups, it's definitely the Bills. Although I will say that, point out that Christian Benford missed practice today. AJ Epinesa hasn't practiced yet. Shaq Thompson hasn't practiced yet. There are some injuries for the Bills, but still. But for the spot, though, the Bills are coming off a big win against the Chiefs. And Andy and I talked about this at length yesterday. I don't think he seemed bothered by it. I don't know which side. I forget which side he took. If Andy, you're listening, just please let us know. Remind us which side you liked in this game. But Andy didn't seem to think that this is going to be a bad spot for the Bills. But because he said that is because the Bills have beaten the Chiefs regularly in the regular season over the past 4 years. So and that was a good point, I thought. But still, they already beat Miami. If this is the first matchup against Miami, I think they'd be more focused, or at least would have a sense of urgency. But they've already beat Miami. They just came off the Kansas City win. I think they could easily be flat here. Plus, the last 2 times these teams have played, they've been kind of close games. So I think I would take the Bills if I had to, but I have no interest in this game. What do you think about it?
Yeah, I don't think we're going to take this game because I don't like really either side. Just I looked at that to see what the Bills have done off of the Kansas City win. 4 years ago, they lost to Tennessee. They were a big favorite in that game. They lost outright. 2022, they beat Green Bay, but they didn't cover. And in the last 2 years, they won and covered. They beat Dallas, and then they beat the Niners last year by a wide margin. That was a kind of a weather game. Buffalo has won 7 games in a row against Miami. They've won 9 out of 10, but they've only covered half. Mm-hmm. Miami a couple of weeks ago looked like they laid an egg. That was the Cleveland game we discussed. They got blown out 31-6. They turn around somehow and they dominate Atlanta on the road. And then last week, of course, an absolute no-show. Tua wasn't awful last week, by the way. And I'm one to often point out how bad Tua is. He really wasn't so bad. As a team, though, they were bad. They were -3 in turnovers. They were 0 for 3 in the red zone. They were 2 for 12 on third down. They didn't turn the ball over. I didn't think Baltimore was overly impressive in that game, but they just did what they needed to do. Now, the Bills, as usual in the regular season, played a great, clean football game last week, mistake-free. Allen was 23 for 26 passing, took what the defense gave him. They moved the ball. Now, the game ended up being a little bit closer at the end, Kansas City having somewhat of a chance because Buffalo missed that field goal late. But Buffalo really should have won that game pretty comfortably, if you ask me. The one thing that I worry about in the matchup, obviously we know Buffalo has the advantage pretty much across the board, other than their run defense. Their run defense continues to be poor. They continue to be missing guys defensively. And if there's one thing Miami could do, it's the quick pass game, which is an extension of the run game. And Achane's been pretty good. So if you told me that this game were frustratingly close for whatever reason late, remember last year, the game was tied late in the game. And I mean, Miami had a chance to win that game, if not for a turnover late in that game. So Tua threw a pick with like 3 minutes to go. Otherwise, the game was tied. Buffalo drove the field, kicked game-winning field goal. So I wouldn't be shocked if this game were close, and I wouldn't be shocked if the Bills came out and won the game 31-13. And this is the game that I mentioned in the previous game that I'm looking at as one of my survivor entries. I only have them available in one of my 2. So the question for me now becomes, do I go with a 9.5-point favorite who quote unquote should win, or do I go with the Panthers and then save Buffalo because Buffalo obviously is an option down the road multiple times? and multiple times where I would potentially need to take a better team because I'm otherwise going to end up with a mediocre team, maybe favored by 4, somewhere between 4 and 6 points. Now I'm getting a team, well, like the Panthers, that I can sneak through and then save Buffalo, who would be more than a touchdown favorite, for example, against Cincinnati. I think they play Cincinnati. It's here in week 14 is a good option for them. They play Cleveland on the road in week 16. They play the Jets in week 18 at home. So there are options where I can take Buffalo down the road. But how stupid would I feel if I switch my pick now from Buffalo to Carolina, and then Carolina, does what Carolina does. Bryce Young throws for 102 yards. He throws a pick or two. The game is close, and the Saints find a way to win a divisional game. So I don't think the Dolphins win this game, but I could absolutely see them keeping it close. If you asked me to make a pick, I'd probably take the points, given that I understand the home doesn't matter as much. But I would think that Miami could backdoor this or keep the game close early enough where Buffalo doesn't have to necessarily win by margin. So I'd be on the points here, but I don't think this is a pick for us to talk about.
Yeah, I don't think so either. Yeah, but Survivor, I thought you had Seattle left for Survivor.
I do. I have Seattle in entry number 1. I've used Seattle. I used Seattle in week 3 in entry 4, and I used Buffalo in week 3 in entry 1. So now I'd be flopping them.
All right. Okay.
So Makes sense. Have Seattle and Buffalo, and then the question is, do I take Carolina instead of one of those other 2 teams? And when we get to the Seattle game, we can talk more about that. But it sounds like you would lean for Seattle and Buffalo and not get cute with Carolina.
Yeah, the Panthers stink. I couldn't take Carolina. I just couldn't. I get it though. I understand why you would do it. I don't. I couldn't do it myself. But I don't know. It's a lot of money.
$1 million on the line.
I know. That's what I'm saying. I feel bad giving you advice if it's bad, and you're like, you lose
a chance. Listen, obviously, you're one of the few people that I would take your opinion to heart. But really, when it comes down to it, I won't ask anybody for opinions if we get to like Christmas week.
Right.
Because I wouldn't want anybody to say something, or I wouldn't want to be influenced in a way. But that's why I said to my partners earlier, I said, why are we deviating from the plan? We're going to feel stupid. And the last thing you want to do is finish a game and say, why did we just second guess ourselves? Like the plan for the last month was this is our path. We're looking at Buffalo. We're looking at Seattle. And now all of a sudden, Carolina's playing slightly better. Why? Because they just beat Green Bay. Because Green Bay shit the bed. Green Bay was awful in the game, right? Yeah. If Green Bay wins that game 27-13 instead of losing 16-13, are we having a conversation? Is Carolina favored by more than 3.5 points? Probably not. But because everybody sees that they got to win on the road in Green Bay, now all of a sudden they're the talk of the town. They're 5-4, and they're a playoff contender.
Yeah, the advanced spread was 3.5. So, and it's not like the Saints did anything to change that. So it's just all based on that win against Green Bay. And like you said, that was complete no-show for the Packers. So, Andy's in the chat. He says one of my proxy clients in the Super Survivor is considering the Bears. You've used the Bears in both entries, right?
No, I just used the Bears once. The Bears were used in entry number 1, and the Bears are not a team that I'm looking at this week.
Really? I would like them better than the Panthers.
Okay. We'll get to that game.
Okay. Interesting. Okay. Are there rules on bringing structures to block the sun hitting players on the bench? Because we're hearing 100 heat index. I'm seeing 85 and partly cloudy. So I don't know. Maybe it'll be 100 index. I'm not sure. But look, if it's that hot and humid, it could affect Buffalo. Despite it being this late in the season. But I don't know. Like, why don't the Bills show up with like giant tents and like just set up that way? I don't know if they can.
Can they do that?
I don't know. I don't know if anyone's ever tried it.
College, I've seen like college teams, and maybe it's the stadiums, but I've seen these like giant tents or canopies along the sideline in some college teams.
Yeah, why not? If they could do it, why not? I feel like it could work in the NFL. Anyway, let's get to the next game. Jaguars, the Texans. The Jaguars are favored by 1 or 1.5 on the road. Davis Mills obviously going to start here for Houston. But there's some other injuries for Houston that I was looking at. Kind of a concern. They've had a number of players go double DNP. The Jalen Petrie, for example, 2 offensive linemen, and Ed Ingram and Titus Howard. So I liked Houston more earlier in the week. I just thought that their defensive line against Jacksonville's offensive line was just a huge mismatch in their favor. Jacksonville's allowed the 8th most pressures in the NFL, and Trevor Lawrence has already been bad, and it sounds like he's going to be without his top 2 receivers. Travis Hunter already in IR, and then you have Brian Thomas, who has not practiced yet. Not that Thomas has been good this year. They did trade for Jacoby Myers, but I don't know how much he's going to do in his first week, learning a new system and everything. So Houston looked good to me earlier, but some of these injuries, like if they're down 2 offensive linemen against the Jaguars team that they can get after the quarterback a little bit. They're not that bad. They're about league average in pressure rate. So that would hurt Houston. Not that those guys are all that good. Well, Ed Ingram's a pretty good guard, but Titus Howard's not that good. So I would still be on Houston. I initially considered it as my super contest pick, and it still might be. I'd have to check the final injury report though, because there are a lot of teams in contention for me this week. I like 7 or 8 games. So, what are your thoughts on this game?
I'm on the other side of this game, and I've been on Houston all year, and
Yep.
I'm finally sick and tired of losing money on Houston, watching their offensive line and watching their play calling. The play calling is utterly atrocious. First drive of the game, they ended up with 1st and goal at 1, and they ran a fullback dive. They ran another fullback dive. They ended up with 4th and goal at 1 and tried a quarterback sneak and false started. They didn't score a touchdown last week. When Davis Mills came into the game, I thought the game was over. They didn't have a chance to move the ball. Obviously, I know their defense is great. Lawrence is overrated. Lawrence is not nearly as good as what he was touted to be. His receivers can't catch whether they play or not. That's why when they got Myers, I forget who said it, if it was a GM or somebody else, said, we got a guy who specializes in catching the football. It's like a knock on the receivers that they can't catch the football.
Right.
So for me, this game is a 16-13 game. I would lean towards Jacksonville because I just don't trust Houston's offense at all to score. So unless there's a defensive score, this is a team that settles for field goals. They can't score in the red zone. Their team this year, they're dead last in red zone touchdowns, 36%. The next 2 bad teams are the Saints at 42 and the Titans at 44%. So they are significantly worse than the Saints and Titans when it comes to red zone offense. Their short yardage situation, they are 32% on 3rd downs. Only the Titans are worse. So, and that's with Stroud. So if you're telling me that now it's Davis Mills, there's a fundamental problem with this team's offense, and now a lesser quarterback is going to be managing it, I have no desire to be on that team that it just can't score points. Now, their defense is great. When they beat the Titans, which I had in Survivor a couple of weeks ago, they gave up 0. That game was like 6-0 at halftime, and I was stressing the entire half watching it until eventually they took a 2-score lead. So, okay, I'm comfortable now because the Titans are probably not going to score. So if you told me here that the winning team got to 16, I would say, good. I'd rather bet the under in this game, or I lean to the Jaguars. I like you, will look at the injury report. I'd like to see that Brian Thomas Jr. playing. I think that makes a little bit of a difference, even though he's had trouble this year. But I am on the Jaguar side of this one.
Okay. All right. We definitely disagree on this
Finally,
one.
I'm off Houston for the first time. It's like I said, I'm sick and tired of losing. It's priors, it's bias. I think they're so good defensively, and I've liked Stroud for his entire career. He was more impressive than I thought in college. I didn't think he would come in and be as good as he was, but he's definitely regressed. And I mentioned this before that I have to give him some of the blame for the poor protections. And now I finally moved Houston out of my above average because I was like holding on by a straw to just really eventually this team's going to turn on. Even that first game against Jacksonville when they were down the entire game, I kept saying they're going to find a way to score. They're going to come back. They're going to find a way to win this game. But now it's over. What are they now? 3-5. If they lose this game, they're 3-6, and playoffs are done. So they're not making the playoffs. They lose this game, and without Stroud in the game, that's going to be a tough task.
Yeah, I don't mind Davis Mills in this matchup. I mean, last week he looked actually, I thought in the first half he didn't look bad, but the second half he was awful. But this is a much easier defense to play. That Jacksonville's 21st in the NFL in defense, and anytime you get a backup quarterback against a non like top 12 defense, like they usually actually perform pretty well, unless the rest of their team is garbage. And we know that's not true with Houston. They have the great defense. Nico Collins is healthy. So I do think. Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. I'm not in love with Jacksonville's coaching either. But
Sure.
yeah, so I think Houston will win this game. I think it'd be 16-13 the other way. I like getting the point or point and a half at home as well with Houston. So, yeah, we will be on different sides. They win that game with Stroud though. This game is versus Jacksonville is tough. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if Stroud beats Denver. I mean, he usually sucks against these pressure rate teams. They're so good. Like Houston's not done anything against teams that pressure the quarterback. Jacksonville hasn't done anything either against teams with a high pressure rate. You look at like how they've done against teams in the top 10 pressure rate this year. Jacksonville is just dreadful. Like they can't score at all. So and it just goes like I said before, they've allowed the 8th most pressures in the NFL. That offensive line sucks, and Trevor Lawrence has sucked.
Well,
And his receivers.
Jacksonville is one of those teams. There's another that we'll get to soon that has really benefited from turnover margin,
Mhm.
and that's just something that you really can't handicap in a way. Jacksonville right now is third in the league. Only Chicago and Pittsburgh are have a better turnover margin per game. Like
Mhm.
that Kansas City game where they trailed 14-0 and then Mahomes and they dropped two guys dropped the pick. If you pause the TV when that ball was in the air and two Chiefs are standing underneath it with a 14-point lead, and you
Yeah.
pause the TV and said, "Okay, who's going to win this game? I'll right now even money." I
Right.
mean, we'd be out a lot, right? I mean, the game
Oh
of
my
the
god,
year.
of course.
Like, yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
Kansas City's not going to lose this game. And then, of course, there's a 99-yard pick six. So Jacksonville's really benefited from turnovers. Lawrence has been unimpressive. For me, I always look to see if that offense can score when they need to score. If they need to put together a drive, and Houston just can't.
Yeah. Steelers got +5 of that turnover margin last week against the Colts. Yeah, they did. Yeah, they did. I have a feeling I know who you're talking about, but we'll get to that soon. All right, next game is Ravens at Vikings. Line is Ravens -4, 4.5. I said that this is kind of like deciding which one of my kids I like more. I like I want to bet both these teams because they both have bad records or relatively bad records, but they're both a lot healthier than they've been all year. The Ravens, obviously, they got every defensive player back 2 weeks ago. They got Lamar Jackson back last week. He's had a mini bye, and so he looked rusty in the first half, but I suspect in the second game he's going to look a lot better, especially against the Minnesota defense that blitzes a lot because Jackson's really good against the blitz. So the Ravens look great, but then Minnesota, they haven't had their whole offensive line healthy. They're still missing the center, but their 2 tackles are healthy, and that just means that they're going to be able to move the ball better. They have Andrew Van Ginkel back. He's a monster. It just changes that whole defense. So I like both these teams. I made this line like 2.5, Baltimore -2.5. So I didn't quite get the 4. I think that people know Baltimore's going to be playing better going forward. I mean, they're obviously they're the favorites to win the division, so I think that's true. But I don't think people realize that Minnesota is going to be playing better as well. So I think we're getting some line value here with Minnesota. But this is just a play on the number for me because I like both teams. So I'm not going to be betting this game. What do you think about it?
Yeah, so I agree. I'd like to be on both teams. And I
Mhm.
think the Ravens, I see there's a comment that the Ravens might run the table. I fully agree with that. I think the
Yeah.
Ravens, if they're healthy, if Lamar stays healthy, I think there's a good chance this team is like last year's Eagles team that comes out of a bye, knows they have to win, and just gets better and better and better.
Yeah.
But I made a huge upgrade last week to Minnesota. Huge upgrade. Now, I'm not the biggest McCarthy fan, but he played much, much better than what Wentz did. Now, he did have some moments of inconsistency in Brady. When I went back and watched the game, focusing a little bit more on what Brady, and I don't really love what Tom Brady has to say during these games, but at least he knows how to analyze quarterback play. And he had commented a few times that when McCarthy's on the move, the tip of the ball is not, his hand is like not above the ball, so he's inaccurate, especially on those runs. And we've seen a lot of that from McCarthy in some of his play this year, where he's inaccurate, he's throwing high, and also, he doesn't really have the touch. He's throwing a lot of fastballs. So Brady called it the 2 ball. And as a matter of fact, the last play of the game, or the last offensive play that they needed, they allowed McCarthy, Kevin O'Connell allowed McCarthy to throw the balls 3rd and 5 or 3rd and 6. And Brady called it a beautiful 2 ball that he put a ball right on Jalen Naylor, who was like a back shoulder fade with really nice touch. I don't think Carson Wentz can make that throw. So if
Mhm.
McCarthy can get a little better, and that defense was really, really good. There were stunts. They were confusing Goff with the stunts. I've seen earlier this year, maybe it's because Lamar was relatively hurt or maybe not 100%. I think they can do some of those things that can contain Lamar. And like you, I made the line 2.5 as well. I have Minnesota right now as a +1. I have the Ravens as a +5. That's a 4-point difference. I give Minnesota a good 2 points for being at home. I think they're one of the few home field advantages that may matter. I can't make this line over 3. I think Baltimore will find a way to win by 3. I like getting the 4 points. And that line, by the way, is coming down. It was 4.5 earlier in the week. It's now 4. Circle line has it at 3.5. This would be one of my top. I only have 4 games that I really like. The 5th one I'm iffy on. This would be number 4 for me. So I think this is a good spot to be in. It wouldn't shock me if Minnesota won the game. I do lean towards Baltimore to win, but I think Minnesota is a strong contender in this game. I think it's going to be a close game. And I know you're going to tell me that Lamar is great against the NFC, and I hear that, but I think this line is just flat out wrong. I think it's too high.
Yeah, Lamar's great against the NFC. Actually, I wasn't planning on saying that, but yeah, I don't know. I guess it's true. People love that narrative, and it makes somewhat sense. Like initially it did, because the NFC teams don't have to prepare for Lamar. But now that they've had, like, every NFC team has played Lamar at this point, so I think that trend will be 500 going forward. I would assume maybe slightly better than 500, but I don't think it's going to be as, like, if it's like 20-3 right now. I don't think the next 23 games are going to be 20-3, like nothing close to that. So, yeah, so we can put that in the maybe pile, or maybe the definites once we get to discussing the final card here. But yeah, well, let's get to the next game, which is Patriots at Buccaneers. Buccaneers are favored by 2.5. Andy loves Tampa. I told Andy, I was like, I have no idea what to make of this game. Like a 50-50 on it. And Andy said that he loves Tampa. He pointed out that the Patriots have they played a very easy schedule outside of the Bills game, which is definitely true. But they've blown out teams too, and I think that there's something to that. Drake May has been playing on another level. Mike Vrabel is a great coach. Like, you can only beat who you play. Like, right, and so. Who's to say that if they played some tough games, they wouldn't be like 500 against those teams? Like, I think that's certainly possible. Tampa is, I think Tampa is going to be missing Hassan Reddick, looks like, but Luke Goedeke might come back, so there's that. I'm not high on this Tampa team. I think they're overrated. I think that they have a lot of injuries right now, like the receiving core, for example. They only have Emeka Egbuka, who's reliable. And Tampa, for some reason, if you want to talk trends or anything, I don't know what you make of this, but or at least like you can factor this in as far as your points that you give to home teams. But Tampa has the worst home field advantage in the NFL, even worse than the Chargers. If you just look at the pure numbers, since they opened their stadium, this new stadium, Tampa at home is 46-77 against the spread at home.
Is that a fluke, or do you think there's a reason for that?
I don't know. I mean, look, Tampa's a party town.
Fans.
Yeah, I get that. Tampa has fans, obviously. They have a pretty loyal fan base. I don't understand. Like, I mean, at one point, it's like 100 and what is it? 46-77, like 111 sample size. Is that a fluke? Like, it is, or 113. Is that like? I don't know. There might be something to that. Tampa's a party town. I was told it's the strip club capital of the world. Maybe a lot of their players just are strip clubs there when they're at home. I don't know. But that is something that I always like have in the back of my head whenever I look at Tampa games at home. But anyway, I don't have no desire to play this game. Do you like either side?
Well, I lean to the Patriots because I think the Patriots are the better team. So I'm looking at the game, and I have the Patriots about 0.5 point to 1.5 points better, depending on the right tackle situation. I don't think, obviously, Bucky's probably not coming back. I give the Bucs 1.5 points, which is my standard average home field advantage. I hear the numbers, but I don't know if there's a real rationale behind that, at least for right now. Tampa Bay, to me, is a great team to play as a dog. I love Tampa Bay when I'm getting 3.5 or more points because Baker's a gamer. He finds ways to backdoor. He always competes. They play these back and forth games. I mean, the Bucs are a great team against the run, but the Patriots can't run the ball anyway. May's been great. And I get it. I hear the argument about their schedule. The Pats have played against some really bad teams, but that's the schedule that they've had. I've been more impressed with the Patriots, and I started betting on the Patriots after their loss to Pittsburgh because I thought that they completely outplayed Pittsburgh in that game. And it was just the turnovers. Otherwise, they would have won that game by margin. So let me look at some of their other games here real quick. Obviously, the Buffalo game was super impressive. And I was on that game. We had that game as a contest pick. They were 7.5 point dogs. And for some reason, I thought that they'd be competitive. They killed the Browns, which they should have done. They killed the Titans, which they should have done. They would have beaten the Saints by a much wider margin had the refs not taken a bunch of touchdowns off the board. They killed Carolina, everybody's darlings. Um, and so that's it. I mean, that's their schedule. That's what they have no choice but to play. That's not a reason to say that they're not a good team because they're not playing good teams. They're dominating all these other teams. And I also think they're very well coached. I'll take Vrabel over most coaches in the league any day. So to me, I think this game is as a pick 'em. I would not lay the points with the Bucks. I won't take the game. I'm probably not on the game anyway as a contest pick. But if you asked me to make a pick, I would tell you I would take the Patriots. So not a strong conviction, not a game I would want to bet. I'd be on a teaser. I would take the Pats on the teaser side. I wouldn't want to be on the Bucks on a teaser, and I wouldn't want to be on the Bucks to win outright. So
Yeah.
To me, this is a great game to bet live. I think this game is going to be close. I have this game 26-24, 24-23, one of those back and forth games. But I absolutely think that the Patriots are a live team, and I'm not laying 2.5 with Tampa.
Yeah. Yeah, we're kind of on the same page there. I would lean toward New England as well, but like I said, this is one of my least favorite games of the week. Yeah, I mean, either way, we're not going to have it on the card, so I feel like we can move on and get to the final of the 1 o'clock games, which is troubling because we don't have any definites on our card yet. hopefully, we get to some soon. From what you said earlier, I suspect you like the Giants here. Now the Bears are -4.5. I like the Bears here. I know that they have this awful defense. They look terrible against Cincinnati. They allowed those 2 touchdown drives in the final minutes, and they were aided by that onside kick recovery. But still, like, they have a terrible pass defense. They have the worst pressure rate in the NFL, and they have an awful secondary. I wouldn't say it's awful. It's just it's really bad. It's just they have a couple injuries there. That's the issue for them right now. It's like their top corners out. Like, it doesn't help. But their run defense is actually not bad. So like their defense overall is actually, if you look at EPA, it's not one of the worst defenses in the NFL. It is 18th overall in defense because the run defense is in the top 10. Having said that, the Giants are a team that doesn't have any weapons at all. Like, they lost Scatabo, they lost Malik Neighbors. Their top threats are Darius Slayton and Wan'Dale Robinson, Theo Johnson. Tyron Tracy looks awful. I don't know what happened to him compared to last year, but they're getting nothing out of him. Like this, the only threat the Giants have is Jackson Dart's legs. And like I said, the Bears have good linebackers. They have a good run defense. They might be able to limit Jackson Dart on the ground. But I think the big edge in this game is Chicago's run defense, or Chicago's running game against the Giants' run defense. The Bears run the ball so well, and the Giants have one of the worst run defenses in the NFL. They have their run defense is ranked 31st. The only team worse in run defense against than them is the Bengals. They're 32nd, and the Cowboys are 30th. So it's interesting that after this game, the Bears will have played the 3 worst run defenses in the NFL. If you look at the 2 other ones, they smoked Dallas. Well, not even close. That was a blowout. And then Cincinnati, they were up by 14 with 4 minutes to go. And they allowed those touchdowns at the end. But again, that was aided by the onside kick recovery. Chicago is like, I know they've had a couple games where they won. They were lucky, like the Raiders game, the Redskins game. But they've also had some impressive games as well. Like, I think winning by 14 until late against Cincinnati, I thought that was impressive. Blowing out Dallas, not that Dallas is that good, but Chicago did that. They blew out the Saints, so they can beat these bad teams. And I think they just have a great matchup in this game. They're the better team, so I like Chicago here. What do you think? Like I said, I think you're on the Giants, but
you're right. You're right. I'm going to refute a couple of things that you said.
Okay.
Now, obviously, we know that I'm terrible with the Giants. I said that a couple of weeks ago, and we pulled them from our card when they had an easy cover. We pulled them out for a team that lost. And we know the Giants are terrible. We know they don't have weapons. We know they're bad across the board. But let's talk about the Bears. Okay. So obviously they're off of that wild win last week, right? Absolutely wild win. The offense moved the ball. Well, they had almost 300 yards rushing. They had 283 yards rushing for the game, almost 8 yards per carry. Their defense allowed 470 passing yards to Flacco.
Yeah.
Now, okay, so they should have covered, obviously, the first play of the game. It's a kick return for a touchdown. They gave up an onside kick. We get those fluky plays that you can't really handicap. But when Joe Flacco had the ball in his hands, they gave up 470 passing yards to that quarterback. Okay. Now, Chicago's defense is tied with Cincinnati last in the NFL yards per play. They give up 6.5 yards per play. They're terrible versus the run and the pass. Not just the run, not just the pass. They're terrible against both. So the Giants, while they don't have real threats like Tyrone Tracy or throw out a random name, Wendell Robinson, the Giants last week, Dart's moving the ball. He played a clean game. He had 56 yards rushing. They put up 30 plus points against Denver a couple weeks ago. If they play a clean game, they will be in the game. And that's, I mentioned before with respect to Jacksonville, the number one team in turnover margin is Chicago. Last week, they were +3 in turnovers. Flacco threw 2 picks and he fumbled the ball. Okay. So they're +3 and they still barely won. But again, let's forget the barely won because of the onside kick, which never happens, and a opening kick return for a touchdown, which very rarely happens. So forget the win-loss. They still benefited from 3 turnovers in the game. Okay. You mentioned they've had some impressive wins. I fully disagree with that. First of all, being up by 14 against Joe Flacco is not impressive, especially since they benefited from the 3 turnovers. They did not blow out New Orleans. They beat New Orleans by 12, and that was a game where Rattler got benched because he gave the ball away several times. So they benefited again in that game, +3 in turnovers. Washington's defense, atrocious. They won that game 25-24 because it was pouring, and Daniels and Bill McCroskey Merritt couldn't exchange the handoff, which would have led to a kneel or a knee at the end of the game to end that game. And Washington's nowhere near as good as what we thought. The Raider game the week before that, they should have lost that game. They benefited from a blocked field goal. That's the Raiders that we just watched tonight with no offensive line whatsoever. They gave up 25 points in that game. Okay, so they blew out Dallas. Did you watch Dallas's defense last week? Not one to speak highly of. So Chicago is an overrated team right now. They're one of the worst defenses in the league by my metrics. Like I said, I have them tied with Cincinnati last in the league. And I have no desire to lay points, to lay more than a field goal with teams that absolutely cannot defend anybody. And that's why I'm not even considering Chicago with a survivor pick. I made the line 3. And I made the line 3 because I have the Bears as a -3 team, which is well below average. I have them 22nd in the league. I have the Giants -5, which is pretty bad. But I have the Giants right there at number 24, so not too far apart, 22-24. And I give the Bears a 1.5 for being at home. And then my model takes 3.5 down to 3. So if you told me the line was Bears -2.5, I would lean to the Bears to win the game. If you told me the line was 3, I would take the points at 4.5. I like the Giants as a potential top 5 pick. There is no chance I would play Chicago as a survivor. And I don't see how one could like that defense after what we've seen the last few weeks. If you can handicap turnovers and you knew in advance that they're +3 in turnovers, you win. They're going to cover. But if they're not +3 in turnovers, and just again, they're number 1 in the league at 1.6 turnover margin per game. Pittsburgh's number 2 at 1.1. That is a huge difference between them and every single other team in the league. Their takeaways, number 1, 2.4, Pittsburgh at 2. And of course, their giveaways, they're not giving the ball away either. They are. They're giving the ball away almost 1 per game, which is pretty bad. But the Giants, giveaways per game. Let's find the Giants on this little chart here. Giants are 13th. They give the ball away once per game. So if Dart plays a clean game, I think they'll be able to move the ball. I don't like Caleb Williams. I don't want to be laying points with Caleb Williams. I would be on the Giants here +4.5. As probably my 5th pick. I know you don't like it. I said I liked 4 games. The Vikings I like a lot more. The Giants would be my fifth if I had to pick a fifth game.
Okay, yeah, the Bears might be on my card. So,
The
I had the
Giants might be
Bears.
my super contest.
What'd you say?
The Giants might make. I'm between like 2 or 3 games for the super contest, and the Giants are right now in contention for one of those.
Yeah. So a few things. I had the Bears ninth in run defense, and I was looking at their results. I'm like how accurate is this? They've only had 2 bad run defense games against the Raiders and Lions. Like every other game, they've really limited the opposing running back. So I think the run defense is pretty good. Also, like Flacco, 470 yards. Like a lot of that was in the garbage time when Flacco was throwing like crazy. You see these games from time to time, like that Kirk Cousins 500-yard game from a year ago. Like it's being behind and throwing like crazy against prevent defense. Like I don't really read too much into that. And you're right about, like, you did mention the punt return. So if you can take that into account too, instead of the Bears being up by 14, naturally they'd be up by 21. And then, like, they recover the onside kick as well. The Bengals recover the onside kick as well. So,
10 yards per attempt for Flacco. Exactly
yeah,
10.
I mean,
That is a massive, massive number.
Flacco looked great against the Steelers. He looked good against the Packers. With yeah, but I mean, like with Jamar Chase and T Higgins, like, he's going to do well. Like, I don't the Bears. I'm not refuting that the Bears have a bad pass defense. I just don't think it matters in this matchup. Like, Jackson Dart has no one to throw to expose it. So there's no, like, if Jackson Dart had Jamar Chase and T Higgins, I'd be like, I'm not taking the Bears here. Like is Darius Slayton, Wan'Dale Robinson going to expose this pass defense? Like, I don't really see it.
I have the Bengals and the Giants tied in my power rankings at -5. I think those two teams are very comparable teams. Even though I hear you, one has Chase and Higgins and a much worse defense. The Giants' run defense is atrocious as well. Yeah. But at least the Giants have somewhat of a pass rush. And if they can get after Caleb Williams and force him into some mistakes, I think this game could be a lot closer than people think. I think the Giants have a chance to win. It wouldn't surprise me if the Giants won this game. I wasn't even, the Bears for Survivor weren't even on my radar. It wouldn't even be a top 5 team this week for me if I'm looking at teams to win outright. If I were playing like a money line parlay, they wouldn't be near my top half.
Something to note that the Giants do rush after the passer pretty well, but the Bears have surrendered. Like they're one of the best teams at limiting pressures in the NFL too. So they did build up their offensive line this offseason, so that kind of makes sense. I just look at like the similar competition you just mentioned. The Bengals and Giants are similar. I have them in Group D as well. I have both teams Group D. D.
Okay. I was getting scared there.
No, I'm not crazy. So the Bears against Group D teams or worse this year. They beat the Cowboys by 17. They beat the Raiders by 1. Okay. They could have lost the game. They beat the Bengals by 5, but they were up by 14. And then they beat the Saints by 12. So they're 4-0 straight up, 3-1 against the spread.
They were not great in that Saints game. That was my survivor pick, and I was nervous most of the game. Yeah,
I know. They outgained the Saints by 130 yards, 1 yard per play more. They were up 13-0. Maybe they just fell asleep at the wheel. Which they kind of did against the
3 picks.
Yeah. So Bears played last 5 on the road, and lone home game Bears beat the Saints 26-14. I didn't even consider the road home splits. I like the Bears.
The Giants are 0-5 on the road. If you want to throw out home and road splits, Giants are 0-5 away from home.
Yeah,
but I'm not. For me, it's more about laying points with a defense that's that bad. I just watched numerous defenses, including the Bears, play very poor football against teams that had no business putting up the points that they did. And I also watched that Raider game and the Washington game. I get it. Andy says they're getting better, and he's right. They are improving. But Caleb Williams isn't blowing the doors off, and I'm not overly excited about laying more than 3 points with this team. I think they're another overrated team. I don't think they're as good as their record. And I think if their record were, instead of 5-3, what are they? They're 5-3. Instead of being 5-3, if they were 3-5 with some of the losses, like they should have lost to Washington and the Raiders. So if they lose both of those games and they're 3-5, are we sitting here and saying that they should be favored by 4.5 in a game? I don't think that's the case. So I think their record, the fact that they've won some of those games, kind of boosts their power rating a little bit to a point where now there's value going against them.
Yeah. At the same time, though, the Giants are, they're 2-7, but
No, they're bad. Yeah, no question. They're a bad football team.
what I'm saying is that their 2 wins came when they had Scatabo, and now they don't have Scatabo. And I know running backs usually replaceable, but like what he was doing with no receivers there was so meaningful, and the Giants' offense has looked dreadful without him. So I think if they don't have Scatabo, I don't think they beat the Eagles or who's the other win against the not the Saints. It was the Chargers. I don't.
Well, if
Well,
Joe Walt doesn't get hurt, they don't beat the Chargers.
right. And if the Eagles just show up and they
Thursday
probably
night football doesn't count. Teams don't
right.
remember how to play football on Thursday nights, apparently.
Right. So if on the other hand, if the Giants are 0-9 instead of 2-7, like this line will be upwards to 6.5, I think. So the Giants win were good wins, Eagles and Chargers. Yeah. Well, I don't know. I mean, the Chargers game, I think, if Joe Alt doesn't get hurt on the 8th play of the game, I think the Chargers win that one.
Mm-hmm.
And the Eagles just didn't show up like we just said. So, and the Eagles 2 weeks later, the Eagles dismantled this team. So, kind of saw who the better team was there. And Scatabo got hurt in that game, and now they don't have him. So I just don't know where the Giants offense comes from in this game. I just don't. So, all right, we can move on. It doesn't sound like we're going to convince one another in that one. The Cardinals at Seahawks. The Seahawks are favored by 6.5. It's up to 7 at BetMGM. I know it was 7. What'd you say?
I'm looking. Is it 7 some places?
At BetMGM, it went to 7. And also
Joker right now has a 7 too.
Yeah, Bet365 with the 7. It was 7 before the Monday night game, and then it went down to 6.5. It's worth noting. I like Seattle here. I think that just this team is just dominates Arizona. They won 8 in a row against Arizona. I know a lot of those with Kyler Murray, but they won by margin in a lot of those games. 6 of those 8 games were by a touchdown or more. And Jacoby Brissett has played well, but you also have to factor in the competition that he's played against. Like he's played against teams that are average or worse defensively. Obviously, Dallas, one of the worst defenses. He had a chance to beat the Colts. He had a chance to beat the Packers. Those teams are ranked in the middle of the pack in defense. Even the Packers are number 14 in overall defense. But now he gets a Seattle team that's top 5 in defense. And as I said before, whenever you get a backup quarterback against a non-great defense, they tend to cover more than not because there's usually too much of an adjustment made. And, as long as the team he's on is not miserable, he's going to have a chance to cover a favorable number. But when the backup quarterback plays the top 10 defense, like it's like a 35% cover rate. I forget I have it on one of my spreadsheets somewhere, but it is awful. And I just think this is a huge step up for Arizona here. Jacoby Brissett playing against the top 5 defense. And also it's a short work week too. They have one fewer day of rest. They have to travel. It's not easy. And teams coming off Monday night football games, you're 8-15 against the spread. So it's usually like below 500. It's usually not that bad, but it is usually slightly above 500. So it's just not a favorable situation for Arizona. So I like Seattle here. What are your thoughts on this game?
Well, this is my other potential survivor pick. I thought the line should be 7, and because they looked good against Dallas's garbage defense, I think we're getting maybe a half a point to a point of some value here.
Mm-hmm.
The adding of the receiver at the trade deadline, I think, makes them even more explosive. I get it. We were wrong about Washington. They were really bad, but it's not – unless you're Jordan Love throwing dink and dunk 20 passes in a row. Darnold started that game 16 for 282 yards. That's not dink and dunk. That's pushing the ball downfield. I don't care who you're playing against. He was awesome in that first half. I haven't seen quarterback play that well in a half of football in a long time. They were just pushing the ball downfield. Jackson Smith and Jigba was open on every single play. Having Shaheed now into the mix is going to stretch the field even more. Their defense has been so much better than I thought, and their offensive line has been so much better than I thought. Going into the season, I thought the offensive line was going to be just as bad as it was last year, and we said if you put Darnold behind a bad O-line, like we saw in some of the games, the big games that he played last year in Minnesota against the Lions, he can't survive when he's being attacked, when he's being rushed. I think he was sacked like 9 times in one of those big games. And let's just say we were very, very much wrong, and I moved Seattle up. I have Seattle now eighth. Eighth. As of 3 weeks ago, I barely had them above average. I was not a believer. I am a believer now. And it's not really Sam Darnold, it's the team as a whole. It's the O-line, it's the defense, it's the home crowd. And like you said, they always beat this team. They own Arizona. They've won. We look back in my notes here with this matchup because I'm pretty sure they've won a couple of games in a row head to head. Just want to quickly pull up the head to head record. Seattle has won 8 games in a row against Arizona. They've covered the last 3. They covered 7 out of the last 10, and of course, pushing once when they were a 10-point favorite a couple of years ago. Arizona has not beaten this team since 2021. So take it for what it's worth. Obviously, it's different teams, but it's like a rock, paper, scissors in the NFC West. And Shanahan generally beats McVay, although we'll get to that game in a couple of minutes. Seattle always beats Arizona. So it's kind of weird, but I like Seattle quite a bit. I don't love laying 6.5 points, but I think we're getting a little bit of value here. Now, we thought last week when we went against Arizona that it would be Kyler, and we said there's not that much of a difference. Clearly, Brissett has been the better of the 2 quarterbacks, at least right now. Mm-hmm. So I'm not surprised that they benched Kyler. Call it a soft benching, what you will. But I don't like the spot for Arizona, not coming off a short week win. I think Seattle, and also there's familiarity with Clint Kubiak from last year. In games that he played last year, 6 games, Shaheed went 17.5 yards per catch. That's impressive. That's them again pushing the ball downfield. So I think that Seattle is going to come home, take care of business. I think they'll probably win this game by 7 to 10 points. Now, remember, in the first game, they were up big. It was in Arizona. They were up 2 touchdowns, and then Arizona fought their way back. They tied that game late. Seattle, I believe, missed a field goal at one point that allowed Arizona to ball, and then they tied it. And then, of course, Seattle drove for the game-winning field goal. And Arizona's been competitive. They were competitive against the Colts. They were competitive against the Packers. So I don't expect them to fold completely, but I like Seattle at home here. I like the crowd. I wish this game were at night. If this game were at night, I would like it even more with that crowd. But I think 6.5 is a fair line, and I think they're going to win by 7 to 10, like I said. So Seattle will definitely be a team that I would consider.
Okay, I put it down. Andy says short weeks should not be as big of a factor when you've already faced the team this season. I think short week plus travel is pretty tough. And they also have to worry about the new receiver too. Like there's some other factors as well. And it's not like they beat this team either. Like I don't know.
Last 3 games in Seattle, they lost by 10, 10, 10.
Yeah, so maybe it'll be 10 again. We'll see.
And I think it's like a 28, 27-17, 28-20, 27-20, something in that mid to high 20s to teens, 17 to 20 points for Arizona. I'd be surprised if Arizona comes in and puts up like 24 to 27 points.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and I think Seattle's offense is clicking right now in a way that they can get me to 27, maybe 30 points. So I think they win not super comfortably. I don't think this game is 30 to 13. And that's why I was considering this game as my other survivor, right? As I mentioned earlier, looking at Seattle, looking at Buffalo, it sounds like you would very much advise me not to pull one of those teams for the lowly Panthers.
No, I would not. Look, I don't want to be responsible for a loss, but if this were me, I would not play the Panthers. I have 5 entries remaining in the DraftKings Survivor, $10 entry, very very exciting. So I did not play the Panthers. I actually entered all my selections today. 2 of them were on Denver, so luckily that survived. But I did not play the Panthers in any of those 5. I did not consider them. I did play the Bears in 1, so we'll see how that goes. So I was going to say, so Andy says Seattle, a very well-balanced team. Did you know Seattle is the only team in the NFL that is top 5 in both offense and defense of EPA? They are number 2 in offense, number 5 in defense. There is another team that is top 6 in both. Do you have any idea who that is?
Top is the Colts?
It's not the Colts. They are fifth in offense, 15th defense. Not Green Bay. Green Bay's 14th in defense, 4th in offense.
Someone top 5 in offense and defense?
Mm-hmm.
Is it
top 6? Top 6.
Rams, maybe?
The Rams, yeah. Rams are 6th in offense, 2nd in defense right now. So,
Okay.
yeah. Okay, so let's get to the next game, and we'll get to the Rams in a bit. The Lions are at the Redskins. This line is Lions -8, or it's weird. There's 7.5 and 8 and 8.5. So you get your choice here depending on what you want to do. I hope we're on the right side. We're on the same side here because I love this game. Rarely do you have a great matchup and great spot. We talked about Bills Dolphins, which was great matchup for Buffalo, bad spot for Buffalo. This is great matchup and great spot for Detroit. So you have Detroit's offense against Washington's defense. You already said Washington's defense abysmal. Like they can't stop anything. Their linebackers are so slow, like painfully slow. Like Detroit's going to be able to take advantage of that so easily. And Washington can't stop the run. It's Gibbs is going to go nuts in this game. Detroit's defense versus Washington's offense. Again, you have backup quarterback against elite defense. Detroit #1 in defensive EPA. This is going to be a disaster for Mariota. And then you have a spot. Detroit coming off a loss. Home loss to a divisional opponent. They're going to want to get geared up here. Dan Campbell is going to fire his team up. They're going to be focused. And Washington, they know the season's over. Like their players don't quit for an extended period of time, but sometimes there is a 1-game quit period, and if the Redskins do quit for 1 game this year, I think this might be it. So I love Detroit here. Probably my favorite play this week. I was waiting on the Penei Sewell and Taylor Decker injuries, and both were limited today, which is a big deal. So what are your thoughts on this game?
#1 pick on the board. Totally agree.
Good.
And this is the playoff revenge spot, remember?
Yes.
So this game was circled a year ago or 8 months ago, whenever January was, not 10 months ago. This is the game that they're remembering because they were favored in that game by 6.5, 7 points, and Washington just killed them. And they're going to come back here and return the favor. Obviously, last week, Goff wasn't great. He was under pressure. Minnesota's defense was awesome. They had absolutely no run game last week. I think they're going to bounce back offensively in a big way. I do not see how Mariota and that Washington banged-up older offense is going to move the ball in this game. I think this game is going to be a massacre. I think this is going to be a 3-touchdown difference. There's really not much else to add to what you've said. The last 3 losses for Washington, they lost by 22, 21, and 24 points. I think this game is going to be a 21-plus point blowout. And the Lions have been good under Campbell off losses in general. So everything, matchup, spot, situation, playoff revenge, point, the injury, of course, the fact that Washington's season is now over and they all know it. I think you can write down the score. Unless there's a weather factor that slows the Lions down, I think this game is like 38-13.
Yeah, glad to hear that you're on board here with this. This might be my pick of the month. I was considering another game too, but I think just this. The only reason I was considering the other game is because of the injuries here to the Detroit linemen, and Detroit lost 3 linemen in that game against Minnesota.
Washington doesn't have a pass rush, so.
Yeah, no, that's certainly
true. They're not doing what the Vikings were doing. The Vikings were stunting. The Vikings were all over the place. They were a great defensive game plan. Washington can't duplicate that.
Yeah, Jared Goff was under pressure so often in that game. But yeah, you mentioned Dan Campbell off a loss, 21-9 against the spread off a loss. It's pretty good. It's pretty good.
By the way, I made this line 11.5.
I made it 13.5. I'll see your 11.5 and raise you 13.5.
Yeah, I moved the Redskins down to -6.5, which is the lowest of anybody in the league other than the Jets, Saints, Titans. And I have the Lions #3, only behind Chiefs.
I might have them 4. Yeah. It was we definitely agree on this. This is a very strong pick here. This will be my pick of the month, I think. Barring if Friday comes and Sewell and Decker are both out, I would still like the Lions, but it wouldn't it wouldn't be 8 units. It'd be like 4 or 5. All right, so we're on board with the Lions here. Let's go. Okay, so last of the late afternoon games, we have the Rams at your Niners. The Rams are -4.5. I was really hoping to see Bryce Huff out again because I love the Rams in the spot. They lost to the Niners earlier. This a bigger game here. This is their chance to kind of like take control of the division along with Seattle, and then they'll have that matchup next week, which by the way is a 4:05 game, just like random 4:05 game. So like the NFL just doesn't seem to care about
Is this really 4:05? That's annoying.
It's 4:05. Yeah, I was like, what is happening here? Anyway, so it's interesting that the line is moving up despite the Niners having positive news on Bryce Huff, who is he's limited both.
Oh, it's 4:25.
Is it really? I thought it was 4:05. Kind of. Let me see.
Seahawks Cardinals is 4:05.
I'm seeing 4:05. I'm seeing 4:05 for that. Maybe I'm looking at Wager Talk.
I'm looking at ESPN. So who knows? Okay. Anyway.
Yeah, maybe they moved it. So anyway, the Rams I think just completely superior here. Even if the Niners get Bryce Huff back, like they'll have some semblance of a pass rush, and this is why I wanted him to be out in this matchup because without him they had nothing at his rush. With Nick Bosa also out, at least like he is a presence, but he has been limited in both days. So it's not like he's been limited limited both times with a hamstring. Like he could easily regress, or maybe he doesn't even play this game. And if he's not playing, like this is a slam dunk pick on the Rams, Stafford won't face any pressure. He's protected extremely well. And then the Rams defense against Mac Jones, I mentioned again, you have backup quarterback against top defense. The Rams number 2 in defense. They're going to be all over Mac Jones here. Their pass rush is elite. The one worry I have is like the Rams run defense is like so like fluky. I don't even know if they're good against the run because they started the year great against the run. Then they had a 2 or 3 game stretch where they couldn't stop the run. And then they've been great against the run in the past couple games. So I don't know which run defense we're going to see. But again, that's my only worry here. I like the Rams a lot, but I mean, this is your team, so I'm curious as to what you think here.
Well, I think the line is right, but I think this is an easy pick on the Rams. Now, this is a revenge spot from a couple of weeks ago when the Niners ended up going into LA. It was obviously a Niner crowd. Probably more than 50% of the crowd was Niners. And somehow they found a way to win that game, although there was a lot of fluky plays in that game, including a fumble going into the end zone on the 1-yard line. The Niners probably don't win that game 9 out of 10 times or 8 out of 10 times. That was a very, very lucky win. And I think this is a bounce back spot for the Rams, who moved the ball at will in that Niner game. Now, they controlled that game 7.1 to 4.9 yards per play. They benefited. The Niners had the 2 turnovers, as I mentioned. Stafford had almost 400 yards passing, and he was only sacked once. I'm not sure why all of a sudden Bryce Huff is now Nick Bosa or Myles Garrett. He's certainly a pass rusher. Niners don't have anybody else on the team. Michael Williams, first-round draft pick last week, was hurt. He's out for the season. Guys are just going down right and left, and these guys are not going down for a week. They're going down for the year. I don't know how. I mean, credit to Robert Saleh, who's keeping this defense somewhat together. But, they dominated the Giants, who were obviously awful last week. For me, it's about the revenge spot, a lack of a defense. Stafford's going to pick them apart. They'll move the ball at will. And I still don't trust Mac Jones. And even when Purdy comes back, if he comes back with this toe injury, I don't know how great he's going to be with no real playtime this year. There's no chemistry with these newer receivers. Guys are still hurt. McCaffrey is the only player who's doing anything offensively for the Niners. Guy had 33 touches last week. At some point, it's going to catch up to him. So for me, yes, the line 4.5 makes sense. I don't think there's a bargain on the line, but I would lean towards the Rams. Also, everyone says like, oh, Shanahan owns McVay. The Niners have now, let me just look back here and just make sure I'm giving you accurate information because I looked this up before and I was surprised by this. But yeah, the Rams have covered 4 of the last 5. So the Niners have covered 5 straight. And before the Niners luckily won that overtime game, the Rams have covered 4 in a row and won 3 in a row. So it's not like Shanahan owns McVay lately. Maybe earlier in their careers, the Niners got the better of this matchup, but not lately. So for me, this game is a relatively easy Rams pick, despite the 4.5, which I don't think there's any value with. I think the Rams win and cover 7 to 10 points. Again, similar to the Seattle game, divisional game. It's not going to be a blowout. The Rams are not going to walk into San Francisco and kill them. But I would be surprised if the Niners won this game, and I don't think they're going to come within 7.
Okay, yeah, we can put this on our card. I think we both think highly of it. The reason I talk about Huff so much is because the cluster injuries with defensive end. Obviously, you'd rather have Nick Bosa, but with Bosa already out, and some like Michael Williams, you mentioned him. Like Bryce Huff was like the last man standing there, and I know they traded for the Keon White from the Patriots, but he really hasn't done anything this year.
It's just
So
bodies. They just need to put together some bodies and scotch tape the defense together. But right now, that's what you're doing. You're piecing together a bunch of no names.
mm-hmm.
I just listen. They played well against the Falcons. Their defense was good last week against the Giants. Still gave up 24 points, but they played a relatively clean game. This is a revenge spot. Yeah. McVay knows they lost this game. I'd be very excited if the Niners won this game because they're still 6-3. A win is a win. They're 3-0 in the division. I just don't expect it. And usually throughout the seasons, these teams have split. And of late, the Rams have been the team that's been covering, other than a couple weeks ago. So I fully expect the Rams to bounce back. I expect them to move the ball at will like they did the first game. Like I said, it was 7 to 5 yards per play. That's a huge disparity in overall offense. And Mac Jones had a pretty nice game. Their first 2 drives, they moved the ball downfield. After that, they did nothing. They were trying to hold on for dear life. But the Rams moved the ball at will. They got stuffed on a 4th and 1 on a bad play call. It was a Kyren Williams just straight draw up the middle. And, of course, Kyren got stuffed at the 1-yard line. And Fred Warner, who's not playing anymore, was able to punch the ball out going into the end zone. So outside of those 2 kind of fluky plays, the Niners don't win that game. Now, they would have covered because the line was like 8. But they're not going to win that game. And then this game, I think it's going to be like a 24-17, 7-point game, somewhere in that ballpark, maybe 27-17, something like that. So, like I said, I'm rooting for the Niners. I'm not opposed to picking against them. One thing has nothing to do with the other for me. I make the pick in the contest, and I'm going to root for my team regardless. But I don't expect the Niners to win this game, and I don't expect either side of the ball. I think the Rams will control both sides, defense, offense. And, of course, we have our friend Kyle Shanahan who likes to punt and kick field goals. So, give me the Rams minus 4.5. I think no value in the line, but good pick.
Yeah. Do you think this will be an offense type of performance that we saw against Houston, given that the Rams are like number 2 in defense?
I do. I think it's a good comp.
Yeah, they scored 15 points in that game, and they had 223 yards of offense.
And even against the Falcons, they had 20 points. It's not like they put up 30 points in that game either.
Right.
And against Tampa Bay, they had 19. So I think that's more along the lines of what you'll see, somewhere 17 to 20 points. And on the flip side, I think the Rams are giving you 24 to 27.
Yeah, sounds about right. So, we agree on this one. All right, the Sunday night game with Steelers at the Chargers. Chargers are now minus 2.5. This was 3 earlier. There are some 3s out there. Bet Rivers has a 3. DraftKings has a 3. These are disappearing very quickly. So, if you like the Steelers, I would recommend trying to get one of those 3s. I think this is kind of simple, at least on one side of the ball. The Chargers don't have a tackle anymore. Not only is Joe Alt out, Bobby Hart's probably not going to play. He was their well, yeah, actually, he's not played that poorly this year. I thought that his backups were definitely worse. Bobby Hart this year, he only has surrendered 4 pressures in 4 games. So he'd actually been playing somewhat well for them, but now he's out too. So you're going to see Austin Deculus again. Your guy Austin Deculus. It's going to be bad, especially against T.J. Watt and the Steelers defense, which got after Daniel Jones very well last week, and Daniel Jones is actually protected well. Justin Herbert is not. So we've seen the Chargers really struggle without Joe Alt. They almost lost to the Dolphins. They lose to the Giants. They got blown out by the Redskins. They got blown out by the Colts. And not that getting blown out by the Colts is that bad, but still, like they were really a shell of themselves. And then Joe Alt comes back, and suddenly they look good again. And then he gets hurt. And so now they have to move on without him and their third tackle as well. So the Steelers should be able to dominate this game defensively. They will at least keep it low scoring and keep it close. Now, I don't know what Aaron Rodgers is going to do against the Chargers. The Chargers actually play good defense now that they have Khalil Mack and Denzel Perriman back. But I know this, that the Steelers are going to just flood the stadium with their fans. Like, this is going to be like 80-20 fans for the Steelers. The Chargers, as you said before, no fans, no home field advantage. I think it's going to be so bad that the Chargers are going to have to go to a silent count. And so I find it difficult to think that the Chargers are going to win this game by more than a field goal, given that they have no offense and no fans in the stands, like no home field advantage. I like the Steelers here. I think they win a close game. You have Tomlin as an underdog, which we both like. Curious to hear your opinion on this.
So obviously Pittsburgh's off the easy win because they were +5 in turnovers. And like the Bears and like the Jaguars, if you can predict that your team is +3 or better in turnovers, you're probably going to win those games. Now, they created those turnovers. They weren't necessarily fluky, right? They were very good. They finally got some pressure on Jones. They forced him into mistakes. So their defense actually looked like the Pittsburgh Steelers that we expected maybe before they gave up 30 points to the Jets and some other games where they were really bad. But their offense continues to be just absolutely brutal. They only had 3.7 yards per play last week. They were up the entire game and only had 38 rushing yards. How is that possible? 38 rushing yards despite leading by multiple scores the entire game. Now, the Chargers started off with a pick six. This was my survivor. I had my eyes glued to the TV to this game early on. Herbert pick six, really bad play. Special teams gave up a touchdown. Otherwise, they took care of business until, like you mentioned, Alt went down. The minute Alt went down, he got hurt on a first down. The very next play, Herbert took a sack.
Yep.
And then the very next play after that, Herbert was pressured and threw the ball away incomplete. I very much worry about their offense moving the ball against anybody without those tackles in the game, without Alt in the game. It just shows how good Alt is. Now, I made an adjustment to the power rating, which takes my Charger number to a +1. I think Hampton's pretty good, and I think Kamani Vidal is pretty bad. And Herbert right now is their best running back, which is a problem. So I have the Chargers as a dead average team, and I have the Steelers as a point below that. Below average. The Steelers are a below average football team. No question about that in my mind. I'm not going to consider their defense to be good enough to offset the terrible offense that they have. But I have no idea how you get to 3 in this game. None. Because I don't give any advantage for home field. You mentioned the home field advantage. I give an absolute 0. I heard somebody, prominent person that I respect, say, well, they're traveling. They're flying cross country. So it's worth a point. To me, it's not. They're flying on private planes. They're just fine. It's a couple hours on a plane. They'll travel. They'll play cards. They'll hang out. They'll get there, and they'll see a sea of yellow, of terrible towels. They'll be 80 to 90% of the crowd. If the line were 3, which I believe the Super Contest is 3, I'm fully on board with Pittsburgh +3. I don't like Tomlin off of a win. It's a difference. Yes, we like him as a dog, but I don't like him off of a win because when they are off of a win, historically, he's awful. At 2.5, even though I make the line 1, because like I said, there's a 1-point difference and I don't add anything for home field, 2.5 is still a little high. I could see that line coming into play, especially with Pittsburgh. And we said this a couple of weeks ago with the Packers game, which we lost. Boswell is somebody you can handicap. They kick a ton of field goals. He's great. Boswell, I think he's the best kicker in football right now and probably has been for the last couple of years. So they're a team that will give you 15, 18, weird scores that the 1 or 2 points could come into play. So I lean to the Steelers in the circa at 2.5. I like them a lot better in Super Contest at +3. So yes, I could agree with you if this is one of your top plays, but I would like it a lot better at getting that. I don't think they can lose by margin. I think this game's a toss-up game. If you tell me the Chargers win 23-20, I buy it, and then we would lose by the hook. So I'm not in love with Steelers at 2.5. The line at 2.5, 3 doesn't really make a lot of sense to me for the reasons I mentioned. But Tomlin off of a win and Pittsburgh's god-awful offense, not in love with it.
I like the Steelers a lot. It sucks that the circle line is 2.5. The Westgate's 3. So I will definitely be picking this in the Westgate. And I still think I'll be on it in the circa. I think Pittsburgh
in circa, because this line's 2.5 -20. If circa moves back to 3, which again, most books are going to be at 2.5, laying more juice. If this, and we talked about this before the season started, I have a hard time taking a +2.5 when the market's 3. How do you feel about that?
Um, I actually don't mind it. Like, I mean, given our position, where we're 20 and 25, I think
Forget 2025. It's a new mini. Let's win the mini.
that's true. That's true. Yeah, you're right. You're right. I would say, you know what? If people are playing the number and they take the Chargers just because of the number, then we get some good leverage if we have the right side. So I don't mind. I don't really care about the number
Okay.
personally. Um, so a couple things. It's funny that who that guy said is travel. Like, what does he think? Like they're in the Oregon Trail. They're gonna die dysentery. Like, like they're just taking a flight. And we even said going to the West Coast, going west is easier than east. And maybe this will make you feel better. Mike Tomlin off a win, but as a dog, no other factors. He is 33 and 21 against the spread. So it's pretty good, right?
Yeah, I mean, like, for me, it's more about the team. It's more for me straight up because this team constantly loses as a favorite off of a win. So here they're not
Right.
favored, but they almost have to win when you're getting 2.5. Like I said, it could come into play. But if you ask me who I think is going to win, the answer is I have no idea. Right? I just don't think the Chargers will win by more than 3. And I think 3 is an incorrect line. So when you're getting 3 and the line should not be 3, which it's not, I think you're getting some good value getting Pittsburgh plus 3. We also tried to get away with Pittsburgh plus 3 a few weeks ago, and they were up 16-7, and then found a way not to move the ball at all in the second half and allowed Jordan Love to complete 20 straight passes.
Yeah.
So now Jordan Love is better protected than Herbert without Joe Walt. With that said, I don't trust their offense. Rodgers can't throw the ball downfield. He has no intentions of throwing the ball downfield. He wants to get rid of the ball within 2 seconds, 2.3 or whatever that number is, and they have no run game. Even when they're leading, they have no run game. So if the Steelers are ahead in this game, I think the Chargers are going to have plenty of opportunities. So that's exactly right. If you're on the Steelers in this game, it's more against the Alt injury. Well, not true, because I think at 3, I think there's line value as well, not just the injury.
Mm-hmm.
But at 2.5, for me, at 2.5, yes, it's the injury. Because if Alt were playing, if you told me Alt were playing, and the line were 2.5, I'd be on the Chargers.
Yes, I agree. It's a huge difference. Cluster injuries to tackle. It's a big deal. You know, if Slater is back, we'd be on the Chargers too. Like it's such a big deal. Not having any tackles. If Jordan Love had no tackles either, he would not have completed 20 passes in a row. The line is 3 because of the injury. How much of it? Well, it was 3. It opened 3. The advanced line was 4.5. So, I mean, it did move. Did it move a 1.5 because the Steelers beat the Colts? I don't think so. I mean, maybe it wouldn't move the 0.5 point or 1 point, but
on the advanced line, I thought that was aggressive because I actually liked the Steelers plus 4.5.
Mm-hmm.
All things being equal, no injuries to consider. I thought 4.5 was a little large.
Yeah, I did too. No, I mean we know that this is the favorable spot for Tomlin as an underdog. So yeah, I mean I do think the line was high, and I think also the fans, like the Chargers having to go to silent count at home, I think is going to be a big factor too. And yeah, I mean the Chargers they've shown, and this I think enough of a sample size that they are just like definitely not even close to the same team without their tackles. Like getting blown out by the Redskins at home, like that is awful.
And they lost to the Giants. They scored 18 points against the Giants.
They lose to the Giants. They were down by 1 against the Dolphins with a minute left.
Mm-hmm.
These are not good
not
teams. Yeah, these are not good opponents. These are not like Colts. You can understand. These are not like they're playing the Colts and the Packers and the Lions. Like they're playing bottom feeders, and they either lose to them or barely win against them. And the Steelers, we're not very high on the Steelers, but the Steelers are definitely better than the Redskins and the Dolphins and the Giants. So, yeah, we agree on this one.
Andy points out that the August Westgate line was 4. Mm-hmm. So, with just the injuries alone and how poorly the Steelers have played, that line drops. I'm looking at my handy Westgate summer lines. Find some of these lines interesting. Broncos were minus 6.5, which is the line I would have made it now. Falcons were favored by 1.5. The Bears, your Bears, were favored by 5.5 in the summer, which means despite the injuries and despite that the Bears are improving, they're lower than they were before the season.
It's so weird.
Yeah, I find that interesting. Buffalo only a 5.5 point favorite against the Dolphins.
Hmm.
That's interesting. Who else here is interesting? Panthers are the same. Panthers are the same 5.5 point favorite. That's very weird because the Panthers are, to me, a lot better than what I guess people thought. And the
Yeah.
Saints not trading away the farm. I would have thought that line would have been closer in the summertime. Seahawks -1.5 over the Cardinals. Okay,
Wow.
interesting.
That's crazy.
Lions. Who are the Commanders?
I believe that's like wasn't that the Adam Sandler longest yard team name?
Well, obviously injury there, but
Yeah.
Lions, Commanders, pick them.
Yeah, we know that's things have changed
And
there.
we'll get to
So
the next game, but the Eagles on the look ahead summer line where Eagles were favored.
okay, that's which I think makes sense.
It segues us into the Eagles.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, the Super Bowl, the reigning Super Bowl champion. I don't think you make them as an underdog, even in Green Bay. And then, yeah, the Packers are favored by 2.5 here against Philadelphia. I wonder what the Eagles are going to do with the running game this week because. First of all, they haven't been able to run the ball all year until the game before the bye when they went nuts against the Giants. And we know how bad the Giants' run defense is, but still, they've had other favorable matchups they couldn't take advantage of, and they did against the Giants. Saquon went 65 on his second carry. Tag Bigsby ran for 100 yards. Like it was so bad for the Giants. So I don't know if what they're going to do here. And the second thing is that the Packers couldn't stop Rico Doodle last week. Like he went off. So if the Eagles have figured out their running game, they should be able to move the ball pretty well against the Packers. But if that was a fluke, then it's going to be different. But the Packers they lost some key players. Tucker Kraft, he's out for the season, so it's a shame because he was playing so well. They Christian Watson got banged up in the game. I don't see him on the injury report. Oh no, he's limited. Okay, he's limited with a knee injury. Matthew Golden limited. I suspect some of these guys will play. Also, Dontavian Wicks limited. Like I'm sure some of these guys will play, but they're not. They're clearly not 100%. So that should hurt them as well. And you have the Eagles coming off a bye. The last year when they came off a bye, that's kind of like when they started playing well. So given that the Eagles have added players, they added Jalen Phillips and the two corners. Maybe one of them play well. Maybe they haven't so far this year, but there's a chance they turn it around with Vic Fangio. And you have the Packers regressing with the injuries. I think the Eagles are the right side. I'm not in love with 2.5. I wish this was 3. But I will be on the Eagles. What are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, well, I mentioned this before. Green Bay is one of the more overrated teams, and even though they're overrated, I still have Green Bay as a top 10 football team. I have them number 9,
Yeah.
but they're overrated. And they're overrated because they're inconsistent. That loss to Carolina last week was really miserable. And it was really them shooting themselves in the foot over and over and over again. They had the ball in the red zone. They had a 4th down. I think it was like 4th and 8. And I know they were down 7. It was a bunch of time left. There was probably enough time to kick a field goal and get it back and maybe go for a win. And I guess I have no problem with them really going for it. It was more the play and then the result. Love threw a pick. I didn't see a Packer in the neighborhood.
It was so bad.
I think he was trying to throw the ball out of the end zone.
Yeah.
But he couldn't reach out of the end zone, and he just ended up throwing the ball up for grabs, and there was no Packer near there. Obviously, they had a fumble early that ended up ruining a drive. He was really, really bad. And their defense late. Now, Carolina did nothing. I mentioned before, Bryce Young threw for 102 yards. But when they got the ball back late, to their credit, they drove the field and got a field goal. Now, they also took the ball to start that game, Carolina, because they wanted the option to choose the way they would go in the second half with the wind. Apparently, it was a pretty windy game. So they credit to the coaching staff. They took that option. They took the ball early. They had the wind at their back late, and it paid off. So Green Bay, to me, just a very inconsistent team. Dominated Detroit week 1, dominated Washington Thursday Night Football. Doesn't look as good right now. And, of course, Thursday Night Football, I think we're going to throw out. Outside of the one good half against Pittsburgh in the second half, this team hasn't been that great. And Kraft is a big loss because he is an explosive player. He's a third down threat. He's a red zone threat. Him not being there now, I think, is a big deficit for this team. I don't know who's going to fill those shoes. So that to me is my Green Bay pitch. But Philly, yes, they've been out yarded for the most part. They haven't been great. They haven't been consistent. But look what they did last year. Last year they started the season. We weren't sure how good they would be coming off of the disappointing end to the prior year. They come out of the bye and they didn't lose another game. The only game they lost was the game where Hurts didn't finish the game against Washington.
Mhm.
Could we see something similar now where they kind of get their acts together? They come out of the bye, turn things around. They added some depth. I don't know that Jalen Phillips makes a huge difference right now. Somebody pointed out earlier that Michael Carter hasn't been any good, and that's true. But you put these guys into a new system. Obviously, Fangio knows Jalen Phillips from his Miami days. It's just more bodies to rotate, keeps guys fresh. And them coming out of a bye, they've taken care of business throughout the season, even though they've been out yarded. They had a good win at Kansas City. They had a good win in Tampa Bay. They had a decent win against Minnesota on the road. Obviously, they're let down against the Giants. Again, Thursday Night Football, so throw it out.
Yep.
I think that they're going to come out of the bye like they did last year, play well. If they play good, clean, consistent football, to me, the Eagles are a better team by a little bit of a margin. So even with the Green Bay getting a home field, I would still have Philly as a 1-point favorite, somewhere in that ballpark. Call it pick 'em at best. So now I'm getting 2.5 points, which again is not a huge amount of points to get. But I think Philly comes out and wins this game. So would I be surprised if the Packers win? Of course not, right? It's the Green Bay spot. They're coming off of a bad loss. Philly's coming off of the bye. I don't like teams generally off of a win and a bye because I think you go into the bye with somewhat of a letdown mentality. But they came out of the bye strong last year. I expect them to come out of the bye strong this year. And I think they're the better team. And this is a playoff game. Why wouldn't they wake up for it on a Monday Night Football? So I like the Eagles here. This is one of my top 5 picks. If you asked me, this is probably my number 3 or 4.
Okay.
Like I really like the Seahawks. Sorry, I really like the Lions and the Rams. Outside of Lions and Rams, which are by far my top 2 picks, the Eagles and Vikings would be next on my list, and then kind of a mix between the Seahawks, the Giants, the Jaguars fighting for my 5th spot. Obviously, the Steelers, if I had 3, I would agree with them a lot more. Otherwise, I probably have them like just on the outside of that mix, along with maybe a team like the Saints, right? So those would be the teams that I would look at. But I agree with you on the Eagles. I'm not sure you said you would use them or you would consider using them. I think it definitely should be a consideration. I think we're getting a Super Bowl contender that is the better team getting points.
Yeah. I'm definitely cool with them being on the card. Luke was asking where the money's going. Look, the money's on the Eagles. They're a public home dog, but I'm not.
Home dog, they're a road dog.
Oh, so yeah, public road dog. Sorry. I'm not too worried about that. The public has taken a huge beating this year. Like public sides have been slaughtered, which is weird because the favorites have been so good, but the public sides are like, I can actually pull it up. It's like I couldn't believe how bad the numbers are with how the public has done, and like it feels like the sports books owe the publicly backed teams this year are 13-27 against the spread.
That's weird because favorites are 55%. So for me, I think the opposite. I think this is just a square year. And I was having a conversation with somebody earlier today because I'm in this office pool, which I'm usually pretty good with, usually towards the top 10. And now we're under 500, which is crazy. But yeah, when favorites are hitting 55%, I don't expect to be in that 55% category. I'm just generally leaning more towards underdogs than I am favorites. This week included. I have 14 games, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 out of my 14 picks are dogs. So, and as far as the games that I highlighted, it's pretty split. Vikings, Giants, Eagles, maybe Steelers as the dogs, and Jaguars, Seahawks, Lions, Rams is my favorite. So it's pretty split. I feel pretty good. I feel much better this week than I did last week. Last week I hated the card, didn't like it at all, and it was awful. The week before, felt a little better, but we didn't. Well, the week before I went 2-3, which is not acceptable either. We went 1-4 actually, but so we've had now a run of 2 back-to-back weeks, which has just been absolutely miserable. I think we owe everybody a refund. But I feel much better about this week and getting back to the basics, catching points on some of these games that I like with live teams. So they're really the only 3 favorites that I like laying. Seattle, Detroit, Rams. We're not taking any 13-point favorites this week, which I'm happy with. I hate when we have these big. I know every week you say, well, There's a reason that they're favored by 10.5 or 13.5 point favorites do cover, and they can be picked. I just am uncomfortable generally laying 13 points in an NFL game. But here I feel much better about some of these games. Even the Lions, who are laying points, I think that game's going to be a massacre. And I was surprised that the Eagles are dogs. I really am. I would have made the Eagles a favorite in the game. So I'm very happy taking the Eagles this week.
Let's pull up what I would call the definites here. The Seahawks -6.5 against Arizona, Detroit -7.5 against the Redskins, the Rams -4.5 against the Niners, and then Eagles +2.5 against the Packers. Would you remove any of those teams from our definites list?
Detroit, Rams, Philly, no. Seattle for me is an outside looking in, maybe. But yeah, I mean, we don't agree on certain games, so that's fine. But I would say for our purposes, Seattle should be in. And I would throw out, because we both agreed on it, Minnesota as a team to look at. Yeah. Seattle, sorry, not Seattle. You mentioned Seattle. Pittsburgh as a team to consider, and the Saints as the other babies.
Okay, I didn't mark down the Saints. Let me do that. So the Saints are.
The Saints is that's a Walter football pick. That's a. I am cautious because I am outside looking in, considering Carolina in Survivor, but probably not going to get there.
Yeah. Here are the maybes. We have the Vikings +3.5, Steelers +2.5, Saints +5.5.
I love seeing all these plus signs. That makes me happy.
So we have to choose one of them because we have the 4 definites. So how would you rank these?
Minnesota, Pittsburgh, New Orleans.
In that order? Okay.
Yep. That'll be my ranking if you ask me to rank those 3.
Okay. I would go I think I'd go Pittsburgh, then New Orleans, and Minnesota. But
yeah, I have no problem with that. And in the Super Contest, Minnesota's getting 4. In the Circa, they're getting 3.5. So that line jumped down, I guess, this morning. And let me just take a look here now, because I think I saw it was back up to 4. It is. So we're kind of getting gypped a half a point on the Ravens Minnesota game. So from a Circa perspective, I wouldn't mind getting rid of the Saints because I just don't have a lot of interest backing Tyler Shuck on the road.
Mm-hmm.
And the only reason to play the Saints is you're playing against Carolina philosophically laying more than a field goal as a bad team laying too many points. Mm-hmm. There's no reason to take the Saints otherwise.
Right.
Yeah. The Steelers, you're kind of getting screwed a half a point, but the market is 2.5. So I would yield to whatever you decide. If you have a much stronger feeling on the Steelers than I do. I seem to get burned on the Steelers every time I play the Steelers.
Mm-hmm.
Because I find that my wife is a big Steeler fan, and I'm always complaining about the Steelers. And she says, I hate watching the Steelers with you because I'm always mad about the Steelers costing me money.
That's funny. Yeah, it's I do like the Steelers a lot. I wish this were 3. I still like it at 2.5, but 3 would be obviously better. So yeah, maybe we can figure this out tomorrow. I would like I said, I like the Steelers better than the Vikings. But yeah, we're getting gypped on both counts. Like the Steelers are 3 in the Westgate, and the Vikings are 4 in the Westgate. So, I don't know. It's just a shame. Vikings arguably playing a better team in the Ravens, and the Steelers are facing the Chargers. I definitely agree with that.
Well, hence the line being higher.
Sorry, what'd you say?
I said that's why the line is larger.
Yeah. Consider Indianapolis bounce back against a quarterback who can't win on the road.
That game doesn't count.
Yeah, it's not the road. It's not the road. It's in Germany. You just John, you just don't know how these teams are going to play overseas. Like, what if the Colts players suck at jet lag? Like I'm
assuming it's an outdoor stadium. Does anybody know the weather report? Do we have a weather report for that game?
NFLweather.com says 48 degrees and cloudy, no wind. So perfect.
No precipitation, because we know in London the field's always wet. It's usually a slow field.
Yeah.
Leads to more turnovers, fewer points.
I'm not seeing any precipitation. But you know my stance on weather. I don't think anyone could predict the weather. I think it's all conspiracy to get people to buy stuff, stimulate the economy. I don't know.
No, there's too many variables to consider when you're talking about the international games. It's too hard. It's too hard to figure it out.
Remember Matt LaFleur complained about the clock change when he went to London to play the Giants. Like he said, he missed the meeting because the time
I
change.
do.
Yeah,
Well,
it's like
stupidity. I mean, you got to figure that out. That shouldn't be difficult for a team to figure out when to travel, how to travel, what to do. So that's just before making a mistake.
And I agree with that, but like you just don't know how these players and coaches will react to the time change, you know? Like what if the Colts, what if Daniel Jones sucks at this, or I guess he beat the Packers, is a bad example, but like what if some of these players just suck at this time change adjustment? What Jonathan Taylor just like really they're really terrible at traveling overseas. Like you just don't know. There's so many variables here. You just don't know. And like all these international games suck. They're just so bad. I don't know. The favorites have a pretty good record overseas. Usually the better team does well. I think the line is inflated though for that reason. Like we talked about that earlier, how we both made the line like 4.5 or so.
Mm-hmm.
And like the line is 6.5. That's a big deal because it crosses the key number of 6. So we're not getting a good deal on the line, you know. And he is coming off a loss, which I like, but I think line's too high and there's too many variables. So
I don't want to be betting on the Falcons coach.
Right,
that coaching staff is awful. I sent you a video. There was a key play in a Niners Falcons game where McCaffrey, it was like, I think it was a touchdown or it was a third down conversion late, and I was watching it on the NFL game matchup show. Greg Cosell, who's one of my favorite football analysts, and they're showing the play. And I sent this to you on Twitter if you want to find the Twitter feed. And I said, "What do you notice here about Raheem Morris's Falcons?"
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you saw that.
I did click the video. I wasn't getting any audio. I've been having issues with audio here.
Okay, well, I'll just tell you. So it was a whole thing about showing the Niner formation and where they moved McCaffrey out and kind of in the slot, but again, a little bit back to give him a running head start. And I wrote to you, what do you notice about the Falcons defense? And the answer was they only had 10 men on the field.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, so that's that. I mean, you can go through matchups all you want. There's a huge advantage playing 11 against 10. And that's a coach. That's on the coaching staff. So I lean to the Falcons with the line value, but the Colts are coming off of a worse loss where they had 6 turnovers. I expect them to have the better, more favorable spot. And I don't have any interest in betting these crappy coaches, especially when they're going overseas. You talk about Thursday night coaching advantages. Sometimes that's why the better teams have the advantage. They have a better coach. They're better prepared.
Mm-hmm.
I don't trust Raheem Morris to have the team prepared. You mentioned the floor missing a meeting or the clock. And as you're talking about that, I'm thinking like, I don't want to be betting on Raheem Morris going overseas or on a Thursday night.
Yeah.
So, or now I'm thinking for next week's Survivor, if I advance this week, the Falcons coming back from Berlin, 8 hours and 55-minute flight back overseas.
Mm-hmm.
And, or maybe longer, because that's the trip Atlanta to Berlin. When you're flying west, you get the headwind. So maybe it's longer going the other direction. And I don't trust the coaching staff to have the team prepared. Or to get the revenge on the Carolina for week 11. So Falcons is not a team that I trust. Just too much of an inconsistent team. Situationally being overseas, just definitely not a game that we would pick. That's one of my lowest ranked games on the board.
I would not want to trust Raheem Morris either. He just they're just so poorly coached. It's ridiculous. Who do we think will get drafted number 1 in this year's draft? It's gonna be one of the quarterbacks, Ty Simpson, Fernando Mendoza, or Dante Moore. They're the 3 favorites to go number 1 this year.
I hope it's Carson Beck so I can bet against him.
Carson Beck. He's really bad. Unfortunately, he's not going to go first round, but some team will draft him, and maybe we'll get a chance to bet against him at some point.
Where do you have Sellers, the Carolina quarterback? Do you have him top 10?
Yeah, he's top 10. Yeah, although a lot of Charlie Campbell's sources were. They're kind of like, we hope Sellers goes back to school. He's upside, but just hasn't is pretty inconsistent. So, but I think he still has the upside to go top 10. It's not a strong class, so you're gonna have some reaches, especially a quarterback. It's a really good class for tackles, though. I'll say that. One that had a factor in road teams
traveling with airport delays. Aren't these teams flying from like private airstrips?
I would hope so. It's like to just
the Jets are. Well, maybe the Jets are. That would be hilarious. Maybe the Jets are going to LaGuardia, but I don't think most teams are. I don't think the Raiders are flying out of Harry Reid. Aren't there? They're private airstrips, and pretty much all these teams are flying. I don't think they're going to the airport. I'm not dealing with air traffic control at LaGuardia or JFK.
I can see the Bengals. Yeah, I can see the Bengals being cheap and
the Bengals are flying coach.
yeah. They're flying on one of those little cargo planes.
Yeah, that's hilarious.
They're hoping the plane lands, doesn't crash. Still have issues with air traffic controllers. We did that one team that got delayed. Or was it the Packers going to Arizona?
Packers, yeah, they were delayed a couple hours. They had some flight issues. I don't think that was air traffic.
Yeah,
those are taking trains.
Well, they're the ones. They're the ones in the Oregon Trail. They're the ones in the Oregon Trail getting dysentery.
They're on Amtrak. You know what? If I were the Bengals, I would send their defense home on Amtrak last week.
Right. Oh man, it's so bad.
Yeah. Oh, they were home. They were at home last week when they gave up 1,000 points.
So bad. So anyway, yeah, we're down to Minnesota versus Pittsburgh. You like Minnesota more. I like Pittsburgh more.
Yeah, I'm okay with either one.
Yeah.
I like getting the full more than a field goal.
Yeah, that makes sense.
With a home team, even though the Steelers are like a home team.
Basically, yeah, that is. It's going to feel like home. So, and for what it's worth, the last two times the Steelers traveled to play the Chargers, they won those games. So not that means all that much, but that is at least something. All right, so yeah, I mean, I guess that's about it for the show. Anything else you want to add?
We got to bounce back. That's
yes.
It's time to come together and find some of these games and get them right, because we're strangely in the red.
Yeah, that's weird,
and not acceptable.
Yeah, well, it is a new mini contest. It's the quarter 3 of the Circa. So there were 3 winners of the second quarter. They were all 21-4, and they won. They each took home $83,000. So sounds pretty good. It's 4
weeks. We got 20 games. We probably need to go 17-3.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Let's go 4-1 or 5-0 and worry about 17-3 next week.
Exactly. Yeah.
But the other thing is, now remember, you can flip coins all you like. The hope is that we're giving people information on both sides, right?
Yeah.
You may have said a couple of things about the Bears, for example, about some of their wins, which I disagree with, right? I think that they have not looked as good in some of their other games than you pointed out. And I may have said things that you might not agree with. And that's the whole point here, is to give the information both ways. Let people at least, there's something that Evan said or that Walt said that I didn't think of, or that I like or I don't like. Sometimes you can handicap the handicap, and that might put you on or off of a game. And that's what's most important, right? Because most of these games end up being somewhat coin flips. We've been on the wrong side of a bunch of coin flips. Last week, we were on the wrong side of not coin flips. We were blown out of the water. So it's going to happen. But the hope is that, if something crazy happens, if you're winning or losing a game because of a blocked punt or 6 turnovers, you just can't predict 6 turnovers being -5 in turnovers for a game. But we can predict certain things that hopefully give angles that people can consider to look for overall. So that's the hope, that we can give good information, even if the picks are wrong. And they've definitely been wrong for the last 2 weeks. But if we can give you good information, that's really more important.
Yeah, absolutely. By the way, I mentioned this last week. I was charting the teams in the worst situations heading into this week. Whether it's talent or injuries or matchups or like spot/emotional state. I came up with. I actually have 8 teams that are in the worst situation. The Redskins by far are in the worst situation. But then after that, I have the Chargers,
You
the
mean for
Jag.
this year, for
No, for
this
this
year
week.
or going
For,
forward?
for this week. For this
Oh,
week.
for this week. Oh,
Yes.
okay.
Yeah. Chargers, Jaguars, 49ers, Jets, Panthers, Cardinals, and Giants.
Why are the Panthers in a bad situation? Because they came off of a crazy win.
Yeah, yeah. So such a big win as an underdog. So
Okay.
they're lower down the list, but still. Um, yeah. So I don't know if you disagree with any of those. We had
No, I
five.
don't. But I mean, that's not the end all be all, right? I used to look at spot. I would look at
No.
coaching edge. I would look at matchup edge. Obviously the situation, as you mentioned, the trench report. Who's going to control the offensive line? That's one of the reasons why I struggled tonight, is because I had a feeling that Denver was going to dominate the line of scrimmage, but I also looked too much. For me, the end factor was Denver being A, overrated, the line was too high, and B, playing all those close games against bad opponents that put me more on the Raiders, despite the fact that I didn't like the overtime situation from last week and the offensive line, defensive line huge matchup edge towards Denver. So there's just so many different factors to look at. I
Yeah.
think, and that's one of the reasons why I don't really care about trends, because when we look at trends like, oh, in the last 8 years, this top favorite is 33-20, and that's great. But now go back and tell me the situation every single one of those 53 games. Tell me the injury report in every one of those 53 games. What was the weather report? So we're certainly not going to go back and really dive into 53 times and see which games mattered and which games didn't. And of course, over the course of X amount of years, 53 games is not a big enough sample size to really glean anything.
Right.
So statistically speaking, it doesn't really make a difference. So we try to look at a ton of different factors that pile those all together. The injury reports that you mentioned, the situation, the spot, the weather, the coaching edge, who's coming off a loss, who's coming off a win, who's got a big game next week. There's just so many things to look at. And to say, oh, one thing matters more than another is just incorrect. So I always like to start with my power ratings. I try to make a line. I want to see where the market is. And that's where I, last week, changed my power ratings mistakenly, just because of the situation for a year and a half where favorites are just dominating. And now I'm just going to get back to the basics. I'm going to let it ride again for the year. This is what my computer tells me. And I find myself on 9 out of 14 underdogs, and I feel good about it.
Yeah. Yeah. No. Obviously, there are a lot of factors. And such. That was for that list. I was like, it could be anything. It wasn't just spot. It was the matchups and whatnot. That's why the Redskins are at the top, because like you said before, horrible spot and horrible matchups for them. And the line is too low.
Is ridiculously wrong.
Right. The line is too low too. So that's just a slam dunk pick for us. So I'm confident that we'll get that one. So at least have one. I like our card. I think we can go 4-1 or 5-0. So let's hope we do. But yeah, thanks guys for watching. Really appreciate it. Thanks for commenting as well. And like I said before, we are 60 subs shy of 6,000. So if you're watching and you haven't subscribed yet, please consider subscribing. We're actually 59 shy now. So we thank you for the sub, whoever that was. So please hit like, subscribe, comment below, share this video, visit walterfootball.com for tons of content. It's all free. We'll be back tomorrow with Tom. It's a different show. We don't really go over every game. We kind of just talk about the games we like the most. And we talk about complete nonsense at times as well. So it's always a good time. So tune in, guys, if you can. If you can't, then I wish you guys good luck with all your picks this week and have fun watching the games. But yeah, otherwise, I hope you guys have a great night, and I will talk to you tomorrow.